plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 12 o'clock on Tuesday, the 9th of December. I'm Nana Akua.
And I'm Charlie Peters.
Now, footage filmed by a schoolgirl as she was abducted from a park and raped by 2 asylum seekers is so disturbing. One of the lawyers involved says it would spark riots if the public ever saw it.
And a damning new report says the British spy inside the IRA, Stakeknife, committed the worst possible crimes, including torture and murder. Investigators now say he should be publicly named, breaking decades of secrecy.
Warnings of a danger to life as storm Bram batters Britain with torrential rain and winds reaching 90 miles an hour.
And pub landlords are warning of dire consequences as a major hike in business rates looms for 2026. So is the Chancellor's plan pushing pubs to breaking point?
Zelensky and Europe say peace talks are at a critical stage, and a new counter-proposal is about to land on President Trump's desk. But will releasing £100 billion in frozen assets shift the balance with Moscow?
And a Somerset farmer says Christmas is being ruined after the council ruled that her reindeer are wild animals forcing her to get a zoo licence or potentially cull the herd. We'll be speaking with her live.
Well, so it's been a very, very busy few days. I mean, I've only been back one day and so much has happened. And now I know that during the show we're going to have a big breaking news story.
That's right, yeah, the Home Secretary will be speaking in Parliament. Shabana Mahmood, we're talking about this grooming gang's national inquiry because the government is set to announce its chair today, 6 months after they announced that the inquiry would be coming. We understand there are going to be two expert chairs, two expert panels supporting the chair, and also we could have the draft terms of reference coming out today. But Nana, already I have heard some concerns, particularly because GB News can now reveal that the Oldham inquiry, announced in January, is no longer going ahead. It's been cancelled. It'll now be a local investigation as part of this national inquiry. And the barrister, Tom Crowther, who was appointed in January to do that investigation, no longer involved. So quite a significant update, and a lot of people in Oldham already reacting with concern to that because they've had to wait, a year for this update. A year!
Just for an update, for nothing to happen and then to hear. So if it becomes a local inquiry as part of a national inquiry, is that OK? Because it's part of a national inquiry, so it's being localised but then brought into the bigger picture.
It might end up having more powers than it would have had before, because as part of a national inquiry, it'll be statutory, it'll have all those investigative opportunities to gather evidence and to compel witnesses. But still, people in Oldham will be saying, why has it taken 12 months for you to confirm that and 6 months since the national inquiry was announced? Because, they made a promise to those people in January, those survivors, those campaigners. It's a long time to wait.
All right, well, listen, stay with us. We'll be breaking that name of the person who'll be chairing the inquiry during this show, I'm suspecting. So, as ever, send us your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. But first, your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories. The UK government has been urged to reveal the identity of Stakeknife, the army's top spy in the provisional IRA, following the publication of a major independent probe into his activities. It's widely accepted that the late Republican Freddie Scappaticci was the agent, condemned Stakeknife. He was linked to 14 murders and 15 abductions and worked in a ruthless IRA unit known as the Nutting Squad. Sir Ian Livingston, the head of Operation Canova, said it's in the public interest that Stakeknife is named, adding the government's neither confirm nor deny policy for agents cannot be used to protect those who commit grotesque serious crime. MI5 has been accused of attempting to conceal the truth about the links it had with Stakeknife. An Afghan national has been charged with raping two 14-year-old girls in a flat in Bolton, Greater Manchester Police says. 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash was arrested on Sunday following a report of a rape at a flat in Middle Holton, as he's been charged with 2 counts of rape of a girl aged under 16, 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of assault by penetration. Police say he had allegedly been in contact with the victims online before meeting them. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. The Conservatives will draw a line on which health issues the state treats as disabilities in a bid to cut the UK's benefits bill, Kemi Badenoch has said in a speech this morning. The Tory leader said her party would carry out a full review of which conditions qualify a person for welfare support as part of plans to get Britain working again.
What last month's budget showed is that Labour have given up on people like Ruth. Last year, they raised taxes and destroyed jobs. And because of that, we now have hundreds of thousands fewer people in work. We have 1 million more people claiming universal credit since last year's budget. Not since the election, since last year's budget, 1 million more people are on universal credit. They could have done something about this. They could have changed course, they could have backed business, brought taxes down, but instead they taxed hard-working people to pay for benefits.
2 men have been charged in connection with an incident at London's Heathrow Airport, which left 21 people requiring treatment. 31-year-old Tyrone Richards and 24-year-old Anton Clark Butcher have each been charged with 2 counts of robbery and 2 counts of administering a noxious substance after the incident at Heathrow's Terminal 3 on Sunday. The Met Police says officers were called around 8 a.m. to a multi-storey car following reports of multiple people being assaulted. London Ambulance Service attended the scene and treated 21 people, including a 3-year-old girl. 5 people were taken to hospital. Their injuries are not believed to be life-changing or life-threatening. Elsewhere, Ukraine is preparing to present a revised peace plan to the White House as it seeks to avoid making territorial concessions to Russia. Efforts continue to assemble an international coalition prepared to offer ongoing military support to Kyiv in the event of a peace deal, though it's not yet clear what form that would take. While the UK and France have proposed deploying international troops in Ukraine, several key defence players in Europe, including Germany and Italy, have expressed scepticism about that idea. It's also not clear to what extent the US would be willing to underpin any future defence arrangements for Ukraine. Sir Keir Starmer welcomed President Zelensky, the German Chancellor and President Emmanuel Macron to number 10 Downing Street yesterday to host a coalition of the willing meeting, saying Europe must ramp up pressure on Russia to bring an end to this barbaric war. Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary Helen Whately spoke to GB News this morning.
That in Europe we need to play our part and be at the forefront of support for Ukraine in their fight against Russian aggression. And so Keir Starmer actually did the right thing here in getting Zelensky and European leaders together and to show the strength of our support. I think we all want to see an end to this horrible conflict, and it's crucial that it's an end that Ukraine is content with.
The Met Office has issued several danger-to-life weather warnings for rain and wind in parts of Scotland, Wales and southwest England amid Storm Bram. Heavy rainfall and strong winds are expected to cause disruption across parts of the UK today and into tomorrow morning, forecasters warn. An amber weather warning for very strong and disruptive winds have been issued for northwest Scotland, as the Met Office said the storm could cause damage to buildings and homes, power cuts and travel disruption tonight. The Met Office says gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour are expected for a few hours, and some places may experience gusts of up to 90 miles per hour. Elsewhere, victims of maternity failings say they're disappointed with the findings of an interim report which they fear will have no teeth to make changes. An investigation into NHS maternity services is underway after a series of shocking scandals. The National Maternity and Neonatal Investigation is being led by Baroness Amos, who said nothing prepared her for the amount of unacceptable care families currently receive. A report's been released documenting her initial reflections and impressions after meeting families and visiting hospitals. She will investigate 12 NHS trusts in total, including Oxford University Hospitals, which runs the world-renowned John Radcliffe Hospital. And some breaking news before I go. COVID fraud and error has cost UK taxpayers £10.9 billion, according to a report by the COVID Counter-Fraud Commissioner. More on that story in the next hour. And that's the latest news for now. More from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3345 and €1.1454. The price of gold is £3,154.28 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,642 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Good afternoon, Britain. 10 minutes after midday. Now, 2 teenage Afghan asylum seekers who abducted and raped a 15-year-old girl have been given custodial sentences.
Now, Jan Jahanzeb was given 10 years and 8 months, with Isra Niazal sentenced to 9 years and 10 months for the attack which took place in Leamington Spa in May.
The pair, who've been ordered to register as sex offenders for life, could now face deportation, with their victims saying that the attack has changed her as a person.
Well, let's speak now to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, who joins us. Mark, the detail from this case is truly horrifying. Some of the information that the victim shared about being dragged and screaming out for help, but nobody came to her aid.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely shocking. This was in a local park in Leamington Spa, a very popular park, so usually quite busy. But this girl was dragged, first of all, by Jahanzab and then by Nayazal, who joined Jahanzab after he telephoned him and told him to run and help him drag this girl effectively into a deeper wooded area. And during that ordeal, when she was trying to resist being pulled into this wooded area, she was shouting out for help. And at one point, the court heard how a woman passerby stopped and asked her if she was okay. She clearly said she wasn't, that she was being taken against her will, and she feared she was going to be raped. In fact, this woman asked her twice, according to the court transcripts, but then didn't intervene when the girl, clearly distressed, was calling for help. Now, we don't know all of the facts around this. It may well be that this woman felt quite vulnerable herself in going to the aid of this young girl up against two young men. However, it doesn't seem that she even called the emergency services to report what was happening to this girl, and this girl was dragged into that wooded area called a den, it was described as in court. And she was raped by these two young Afghans. She videoed part of it where she's screaming and pleading with these two young men to let her go. But of course, he didn't let her go until they had raped her. So absolutely awful. And I think one of the aspects, quite aside from just what a terrible ordeal this was for this 15-year-old girl, one of the aspects that's enraged people today is the thought that one of these young men could use human rights laws to try to remain in the country. And in fact, his barrister has suggested he would do that. This is Nihazal, who turned 17 apparently just a day before he pleaded guilty, which would mean that under human rights laws he might be able to mount a case. It just depends how robust the British government is and how any appeal court might take the words of the trial judge, who actually said that both these young men should be extradited, deported back to Afghanistan. And, you know, another thing that's really, really concerning about this case is it just highlights the difficulty that the authorities have in trying to determine actually whether someone is a child migrant or not, because you've got people coming across the English Channel who, quite frankly, are claiming that they're under the age of 18 when to all the world they look as though they're at the very least in their mid-20s and sometimes older. But the only way that they can be identified now, it seems, is through checks that are just visual checks. Under human rights laws and an unwillingness of Home Office officials to put them through medical procedures, more accurate tests are not taken. And when I say medical procedures, I'm not talking about being under the knife. I'm talking about an X-ray or, you know, one of these resonance imaging scans, something that's non-invasive that could give a better idea, a more accurate idea of whether this person actually is a child or whether they're a grown man.
Mark, this is really, you know, it is really shocking because it is clear that these people should be deported. They are definitely, I mean, it would appear that they have been found guilty. They are definitely guilty of it. There's proper footage that identifies that they are the perpetrators as well as the victim herself. Why isn't it an instant deportation? I hear that there's human rights and everything else like that in front of it, but surely they've come into this country, they've come in via what I see as illegal means, and now they've committed a crime. I don't get why they can't be deported immediately. What is precluding them specifically?
Yeah, well, they both pled guilty, for the record, so we don't need to worry about hedging what we say in terms of their guilt here. They both admitted their guilt, that they raped this 15-year-old girl. But you're right. I mean, the issue really boils down often to the rights of these asylum seekers versus the rights of members of the public here in the UK to be protected from this kind of criminality. And the issue is that, you know, you've got, for instance, Germany, who is now beginning to deport failed asylum seekers back to Afghanistan, regardless of the outrage there is in that country that this is an unsafe country to return failed asylum seekers to. So let's see just how much of a backbone the British government has when it comes to the actual process of removing these individuals. The first one of these boys, Jan Johansson, has already been served with a deportation notice. So we need confirmation from the government whether that would be coming into effect at the end of the sentence or whether they would try to deport him before he's actually served his sentence, just get him out of the country. And we await, as I say, to see what the legal process might be with regard to the other one who might try to use human rights laws.
All right.
Thank you, Mark White. Well, one of the lawyers for the two men guilty in this case, they said that footage of the attack could spark riots. Well, our national reporter, Jack Carson, has been out in Leamington Spa speaking to local residents there.
Anything to do with rape, man or woman, is appalling. It shouldn't be happening. But as far as I'm concerned, they should get a very good sentence.
No, it was shocking. It really was shocking, and I haven't got any other words really. I mean, Leamington seems to be quite a safe place, you know, and I've lived here for a long, long time, and I've never really heard anything like this before.
I think it's awful, and I really feel for the young girl. Absolutely terrible. The government don't seem to be doing much about it at all in these cases. These cases seem to be going up more and more, and something needs to be done.
Yeah, I just find it shocking. It's quite obvious, and they've pled guilty, that they should be sent back. That's really quite straightforward. And the other thing I find really shocking is that they have access to a form of legal aid where they can continue to appeal.
Yep,
I think you should have to pay for that. If you're trying to appeal against it, whatever age you are, if you've lost the appeal or you've been found guilty, you then have to pay.
Well, and the good people of Leamington Spa, they're sharing their concern and, you know, frankly, anger about this. But it's an anger which is exasperated because they want more to be done to stop people coming over from Afghanistan in this sort of way. And clearly, they don't have the confidence that will happen.
All right, well, obviously, send us your thoughts. We'd love to hear your thoughts. GBNews.com/your say. But a report has found that Britain's top agent inside the IRA was implicated in 14 murders and 15 abductions.
Well, a 9-year investigation has found that the agent known as Stakeknife was shielded by the security services as he acted as an IRA executioner with the knowledge of MI5.
Well, let's speak to our reporter, Doogie Beattie, who has more on the story. Doogie.
Yes, Nana, we're here in Enniskillen, actually waiting on the storm coming in here, but we have been across Canova. I have been on this story actually for about 9 years, and the really complicated part about this story is the man that was in charge of Canova, John Boucher, is now the current Chief Constable of the Police Service of Northern Ireland. So there is some worries there that he knows more and that he's not saying, and that MI5 operating inside Northern Ireland during the Troubles were using some pretty unsavoury tactics in order to fight terrorism. Now, when you look at modern day MI5 tactics and so forth, even the American CIA still operate these tactics. They get people inside those terrorist organisations, and really they are informers for them. The bad point about Canova report, it actually encompasses 4 other reports, and when you put them all together, you can see that some of these agents were actually acting as executioners, murderers, and in fact taking part in terrorist operations at that time, well known by the MI5. And there's one paragraph in this 164-page document that shows just how far MI5 were going, because it appears that after the death, the murder of an RUC man by the IRA, there was a falling out between the Police Service of Northern Ireland, the RUC's special branch, and the MI5 because the RUC arrested 2 of what is alleged to be MI5's informers. And even in this document, it does not mention the RUC constable that was murdered because it would then instantly point to the 2 informers that MI5 had. So the Secretary of State has actually gone round the houses to say that he is making sure that he is not saying he will confirm or deny, but in doing so they have left all the information out of the report that would be of use to any of those that lost loved ones to this type of behaviour. And that's really sticking with the veterans in Northern Ireland who terrorists have those letters of comfort and amnesties. Even the informers seem to have them. But when it comes to bringing veterans to court, they are all named and brought into a court. This has a long way to go yet, and we'll see more of it over the coming months.
Thank you, Dougie Booty, live for us in Northern Ireland. Well, MI5's Director General, Sir Ken McCallum, has offered sympathies to the victims and families of those who were tortured or killed by the Provisional IRA's Internal Security Unit during the Troubles, following the publication of the Canova report out today into the activities of its agent Stakeknife.
Well, severe weather warnings have been issued ahead of Storm Bram, which is forecast to hit the United Kingdom today and tomorrow. Gusts of up to 90 miles per hour are likely across northwest Scotland, but strong winds will be felt widely.
Well, let's go speak to GB News' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire, who joins us now. Tony, how are you faring today?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm pretty damp and wet, and of course this was supposed to be the end of the rain, certainly the end of the yellow weather warning for rain across central Scotland, but still the rain is falling. Nevertheless, we're sort of approaching a time now where the winds are expected to drastically pick up, all the way up from southern Scotland, all the way up to the northwest, where of course from about 4 p.m. today that amber warning will take hold, and gusts there expected to exceed 90 miles an hour. So this time of year, obviously these winter storms are nothing new for the west coast of Scotland, where many of our island communities really suffer the most, quite frankly, because of so many ferry cancellations. And that very much again seems to be the case today, because even this far south we're still expecting wind speeds of around 50 to 60 miles an hour, really doubling over the next 2 to 3 hours. Now, of course, widespread travel and traffic disruption is always the name of the game when it comes to storm days like this, and Storm Bram is no different. In fact, weather is expected to be so bad up in the Highlands that a number of train lines were preemptively cancelled after a certain time. For example, Kyle Loch Alsh is going to be closed from about 5 o'clock just in case anything was to happen up in the Highlands. And of course, more of the train lines, even from Carlisle up to Glasgow and from Glasgow over to the Ayrshire coast, well, they're also going to be inspected and potentially cancelled sooner rather than later. A really miserable affair, it has to be said, here in central Scotland just now. But up north this afternoon, it's going to get a heck of a lot worse. Now, Transport Scotland as well as ScotRail have warned obviously people to try and stay indoors if they can. There is a real risk to life with those 90 mile per hour winds, and closer to the coasts in conjunction with high tides, then there's a lot of concern obviously about waves coming up and onto the tracks, which could cause massive chaos on the rail as you go further up north. Central Scotland, obviously the rail lines are thick, but further north then 1 or 2 train lines going down, and that could be a huge backlog and disruption for many commuters.
All right. Tony Maguire, thank you very much. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Because Zelensky says that peace talks are at a critical stage as Europe pushes to release billions in frozen Russian funds. Is a breakthrough finally close? But after the break,
why pub landlords are warning of dire consequences from looming business rate hikes. Could pints really hit 18 quid? 18 quid? 18 quid?
I hope not. All of that coming up next. You're watching GB News, Britain's news channel. Stay with us.
Bowl.
They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I have the story here today. The brain has 5 eras in it, and the adult mode doesn't start until the early 30s.
Yes. What it says is that rather than a sort of steady progression, your brain sort of changes at particular points in your life. So you've got phases of your life. So you change at 9 is the first point where your brain changes. Then it's 32 when adolescence finishes in terms of your brain, according to the study. Then you've got 66, which is where I've just got past. And then you've got 83. And then
what happens at 66? I'm asking for someone.
Asking for a friend.
You're asking for a personal reason. I'm afraid we start having less effective brains past 66. Is what the consequence is. Some of the neural functions don't work as well. So it says here. Of course, Eamon, there are exceptions, such as you and me, perhaps.
No, I know there's plenty of things going wrong. Yeah.
But 32 is the strongest overall shift in trajectory. It says here. This is a study that's been carried out. But I think Cambridge University have done
what
this.
happens at 32? Asking for a friend.
You end up becoming more of an adult than you were when you were 31, apparently.
That's good. I became an adult last week.
Yeah, I know.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm surprised they haven't, just made a discrepancy between male and female brains in this, because
yes.
I don't think men ever grow up. I think the adult, wouldn't you? Maybe 66 is the way that men mature.
If they ever do.
Because your birthday's what, December the 3rd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up, Eamon.
But I agree with you about not growing up. I mean, people say, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for your birthday?
He wants a big burger from the Metro.
Men like toys.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Now, I just want to say, did you know that we are now one of the highest taxed countries in Europe?
I did know that.
We actually pay more than the Americans, more than the French, more than the Germans.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure of that every month.
Well, yeah, exactly. I can see that as well. But look, pub landlords aren't having a good time either. They have warned the government of dire consequences if planned increases in business rates come into force in 2026. They said that they will face financial ruin.
Yes, pub bosses have said that Rachel Reeves' stealth tax in the budget is going to push those prices up. Their opening hours are going to be cut, and also staff laid off in desperate attempts to keep their businesses afloat.
Right, well, let's speak to GB News reporter Anna Riley, who joins us now. Anna, you're in a pub. What pub are you in? Where are you?
Good afternoon. We're here in the Bay Horse pub in York. It's been here since 1540. It's still got the old Tudor design here as well, and it's got a lot of customers, thankfully. We know some pubs are struggling at the moment, but it's got a loyal customer base. We're joined now by Kareem. You've been coming to this pub for the last 4 years.
Yes, about 4 years.
How are you feeling about the impact that business rates, alcohol duty, the rise in national interest rates, the national minimum wage is going to have on pubs?
Well, it's going to have a big impact, and I think it's it is disgraceful. The British pub is a part of a great tradition. And it seems that the fun police that the government are coming for, local landladies like Lorna here at the Bay Horse.
we're spending untold millions on 4-star hotels for asylum seekers, and the government, instead of supporting small businesses, supporting the local pub industry, has decided to hammer it.
What does coming to the pub mean to you?
Well, it means everything. It's community. You know, we go out from the pub to the pub, you know, a couple of times a week. You can come in on your own and meet people that you know. You can have a pint. I'll always have a pint. Some people will pop in for an orange juice or a cup of tea. It's everything. It's part of the community. It's also a big tradition, the Great British Pub. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but anecdotally, I think they're closing in their hundreds, maybe even their thousands, every year. It's disgraceful. Pubs should be supported. The government should be supporting pubs, not hammering them.
And we're looking now at over £5 for the price of a pint on average. We've been asking our viewers and listeners today, would you pay more for a pint to support your local?
Well, I would, because, you know, it's important to me. I believe in supporting Lorna and the pub here. She's got a great business going here, some great customers, some great regulars. But for some people, I guess, you know, paying more for a pint may be the difference between going to the pub twice a week or going to the pub once a week. That's bad for the customer because it means it's again policing their fun, taking enjoyment again out of their life, and of course it hurts the landlords and the landladies as well because it means less custom.
What do you think the wider impact will be? Because we know here in York, hospitality is one of the mainstays.
Well, hospitality in York is pretty much one of the main industry. Of course it's going to have an impact because people, I mean, they're being hammered by taxes left, right and centre, especially after the last budget. And people will have less money in their pocket through this ridiculous budget that we've just had. And the money that they do have is not going to go as far when they want to pursue perfectly, you know, enjoyable and harmless pursuits like popping to the local for a pint.
And how have you seen the impact change on your financial status as well since the budget?
Well, I mean, everybody's been affected. Everybody has, and I think it's the price rises. Again, for going for a meal, I had friends up from the weekend from London, just over this weekend just gone, and just going out to have a few drinks and a meal. You know, it's just sky high. It's sky high, and it will affect the tourist industries. It'll also affect, I reckon, not so much overseas tourists because they come in with a lot of money, but people from the region who want to visit York, elsewhere in Yorkshire. You know, they may be put off coming to York City because of the, you know, how much prices have gone up.
Thank you, Kareem. Thank you for speaking to us, and I'm sure you'll go get a pint soon and prop up the pub industry.
As long as the missus isn't watching.
That's it. But yeah, that's Kareem's take here, a long live customer here at the Bay Horse in York.
All right, Anna Riley, thank you very much. We used to have a Bay Horse in Chelmsford where I used to go drinking when I was younger. Wonder if that's still open. It was great.
It was?
It was very good.
All right. Well, maybe you can visit what was the Bay Horse. What is it now?
Well, do you know, there was another pub called the Prince of Orange, and Newhall girls were not allowed to be seen in the Prince of Orange.
Right.
Otherwise, you'd be in trouble if you were seen there, because apparently it's a bad place to be.
Well, you'd be in
then you'd have to be in there to see somebody in there, so then you'd have to explain how you saw them, which is interesting. But earlier we asked you if you would pay more for a pint at your local to help the industry, and it was quite an interesting result.
Yes, it's a perfect 50-50 split. Some said yes, some said no. And there's a reminder, if you want to become a friend of GB News, you can for free. And here's how you can do it.
Join the community and be part of our shows by becoming a friend of GB News. Get a direct line to join the conversations that you hear us talking about every day in our programmes by commenting on Your Say and voting in You Decide polls. Access opinion, analysis and behind-the-scenes videos as we share more from the stories that you see on TV and radio. Plus, watch our shows live and on catch-up anywhere, anytime. If you love our channel, become a friend of GB News for free by scanning the QR code or going to gbnews.com/friend. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be a part of them.
Right, well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. But first, let's get your very latest news headlines.
Charlie, thank you. The top stories this hour. An Afghan national, 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash, has been charged with raping two 14-year-old girls in a flat in Bolton, Greater Manchester Police says. Police say he had allegedly been in contact with the victims online before meeting them. Two men have been charged in connection with an incident at London's Heathrow Airport, which left 21 people requiring treatment. The Met Office has issued several danger-to-life weather warnings for rain and wind in parts of Scotland, Wales and southwest England amid Storm Bram. Heavy rainfall and strong winds are expected to cause disruption across parts of the UK today and into tomorrow morning. Victims of maternity failings say they're disappointed with the findings of an interim report which they fear will have no teeth to make changes. An investigation into NHS maternity services is underway after a series of shocking scandals. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Tatiana. Lots more coming up on today's show. Zelensky says that peace talks are at a critical stage as Europe pushes to release billions in frozen Russian funds. Is a breakthrough finally close?
And we'll also be hearing who the new chair of the Grooming Gang's National Inquiry is. That announcement coming up in the House of Commons very shortly. All of that and more still to come just after the break here on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Storm Bram is well and truly with us. The greatest problem likely to be this afternoon, this evening, with the strength of the wind, particularly for Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland, where we have amber wind warning in place. There's the storm system. It's already brought a lot of heavy rain, continued risk of flooding as the rain continues to fall, and it's very windy already around western coasts, particularly for Wales and southwest England. Something a bit drier across parts of the east. At times it may brighten up, but the winds continue to strengthen around this circulation. As I said, an amber warning in place for Northern Ireland through this afternoon. It's quite mild, but it doesn't really feel particularly mild with the strength of the wind. And I say that's the biggest cause for concern later today through the afternoon and into this evening and overnight, particularly across the northwest of Scotland. Amber warnings in place here for gusts of wind of 70, 80, perhaps in exposed areas 90 miles an hour. That is likely to cause some disruption, power issues. The amber warning in place across the west of Northern Ireland until 7 o'clock this evening. Yellow warnings in place for much of the night across northern Britain. In the south, things should start to calm down. It will certainly turn a bit drier through this evening, and the winds won't be as lively, but staying very, very windy in that northwestern corner. As I said, gusts of 80 to 90 miles an hour, likely to cause some significant disruption. Slowly easing a bit through the night, but it stays very windy into Wednesday across the far north. It'll be a mild night and a bright and blustery day for many on Wednesday. Still very, very windy at times in northern Scotland. Still a potential for further disruption, but generally things calming down as you go through Wednesday. Quite a bit of sunshine on offer actually over the Midlands, southern England and much of Wales. So things will be drying out here a little bit, and the winds will continue to slowly ease across the far north during the day. Not quite as mild as today, but temperatures still above average for the time of year.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the UK. We're truly humbled, and we couldn't have done it without you.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M8 eastbound off-slip at junction 12 is restricted due to a broken down vehicle requiring caution. On the M58 westbound between the M6 and junction 5, a lane closure for a tyre change is expected to clear by 1:30. Norfolk's A47 westbound is closed between the A1064 and A1042 due to a collision. Normal flow expected by 2. Medway's M2 westbound between junction 3 and 2 has a lane closed due to spillage, with delays easing by 2. And on the trains, expect disruption to northern services and Avanti West Coast delays to and from Liverpool Lime Street. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Breaking news. In a brand new interview, Donald Trump has dramatically denounced Europe as a decaying group of nations led by weak people.
This comes as he's criticised the leaders of European nations for failing to control migration and end the ongoing war in Ukraine. It comes just a day after a meeting of the coalition yesterday in Downing Street.
Well, joining us to discuss this is Defence and Foreign Affairs Editor of the Daily Telegraph, Con Coughlin. So, Con, what more can you tell us about what Donald Trump said in this interview?
Well, what this interview reflects is Donald Trump's growing frustration with the role of the Europeans. Throughout the recent bout of negotiations, probably the most noticeable factor is the Europeans have been completely excluded. They didn't know anything about his original 28-point plan that he announced last month, and they haven't seen the fine detail of a lot of the subsequent agreements that have been discussed between the Americans and the Ukrainians. So, number one, Europe's been sidelined. And yesterday you had Sir Keir Starmer hosting this meeting of what he calls the Coalition of the Willing, France, Germany, and others. And they're not really getting anywhere. And from Trump's point of view, he wants a deal, and he feels that the Europeans, by continuing to back Zelensky, are persuading Zelensky not to accept the Trump deal. So that is the root cause of this friction.
And, Con, I mean, describing most European states as falling apart, clearly great frustration at the European defence and security establishment. You'll remember that video almost a decade ago now, where Donald Trump was chastising Europe for not paying its fair share, and the German delegation laughing at him. I think it was at the UN, as he made those concerns clear. Why has the European defence establishment never really reacted to those concerns, which are clearly highly legitimate, with a ground war ongoing in Europe?
Well, the incident you referred to is when Angela Merkel was the Chancellor, and she famously refused to meet the 2% of GDP requirement that all member states of NATO are supposed to meet in terms of defence spending. The Germans actually have now said they will meet that and are investing very heavily in their defence, but they've got a long way to go, as has the rest of Europe, before they've got anything approaching the capability to defend themselves against a threat like Russia without American help. And Trump knows this, and Trump's been warning about this, as you say, for a decade. The Americans themselves have been warning about this since the Bush administration. President Obama was very unhappy with the Europeans not taking care of their own defence. So, you know, from Trump's point of view, he sees that the Europeans are weak. They do not have the ability to defend themselves against Russia, and yet they're trying to dictate the terms of the peace deal, which he thinks is utter hypocrisy. So, you know, from Trump's perspective, I think you can understand his frustration. Having said that, there's an important principle at stake here, and that is if Ukraine is forced to concede territory to Russia because of Russian territorial aggression, then that sets a very bad precedent for the future security of Europe. So this is a very challenging time all round, but I'm not sure the Europeans are helping themselves by upsetting Donald Trump.
All right, Con Coughlin, thank you very much. He's the Defence and Foreign Affairs at the Daily Telegraph.
Right, let's cross now to Downing Street. We're joined by our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's been at the lobby briefing in Downing Street. Chopper, what can you tell us?
You're on that very point that Con Coughlin was making so eloquently. The Number 10 was challenged about this, this idea from Donald Trump that we are a decaying nation. Now, they don't want to get into a row with Donald Trump, so rather than saying, no, we're not a decaying nation, we were told by the PM that Britain's voted for change last year across public services, waiting lists, stagnant economic growth, and improve that, cost of living. People want to see serious actions at the borders, and we expect to see security and a ground-up approach with our partners. So they didn't really deny or challenge Donald Trump for saying we're a decaying nation. And on that connection between his concern about Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, Donald Trump said, of course, he's only in power because of migration. People who arrived here and migrated here, their votes in London keeping him in power. Number 10 said the PM and the President have a strong relationship with the US and the Mayor of London, in fact, and on both are committed to working together. But all eyes in Westminster are now on the announcement at 1:30 today of this grooming gang's chair. Now, Number 10 say on that, they recognise this inquiry will leave no stone unturned. They are determined to support the victims who have been so let down. Now, we understand there'll be a chair, 2 supporting individuals to support that chair, and the draft terms of reference published today by the Home Office. So all eyes on that later on GB News.
Thank you very much, Christopher Hope. Yeah, we'll be taking that live when it happens in the next hour or so.
Right, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
A Somerset farmer says she may have to cull her beloved reindeer after the council ruled that they count as wild animals. Red tape about to ruin Christmas, Nana?
Such a shame. But now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's not just the UK seeing some unsettled weather at the moment. It's also been unsettled for much of the week in Cyprus. That continues into Wednesday. And the trailing weather front from Storm Bram brings thicker cloud and some showery rain into the Canary Islands, as well as much of Iberia. This is a slow-moving weather front, so thicker cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain for much of Spain through Wednesday into Thursday. A lot of fine weather through central parts of the Med, particularly Italy, and above average temperatures for the time of year. Plenty of sunny spells.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. Britain, now a Somerset family who've spent 14 years spreading Christmas cheer, say the season's been ruined after their council ruled their tame reindeer are wild animals.
It's a really upsetting story, to be honest, but I'm praying there'll be a happy conclusion to it, because this decision means that a sky-high zoo licence costs and even firearms needed on site. But let's go and speak now to the reindeer herder, Sarah Sutton, who joins us now to tell us more about this, what must be quite a devastating situation. Sarah, talk to us about your reindeer and what you're facing.
Hi there. Yes, we've been operating as a business here as two ex-serving personnel for 14 years under an animal exhibition licence, which has been perfectly legal with no problem at all, no issues, no accidents, no incidents. And as you can see, all of these reindeer are very well domesticated. They're actually farm animals, and they've been farmed for thousands of years across Britain and Europe. However, the government recently decided to tighten up their legislation and class them as dangerous wild animals, just in the same manner as they class lions and hippos. So we're going to be expected to have a zoo licence to carry on trading, which is extortionately expensive and completely unnecessary.
Well, the thing is, though, Sarah, business must be quite hard. I mean, you've got all the business taxes, the rates and everything else like that. You've been going as a business, it must have been very hard work. You must look at others who, you know, people on benefits and people getting things literally for doing nothing. You must look at that and think, why are they making things so difficult for people like you?
Absolutely, it's a good job. There are people like me paying thousands and thousands of pounds every quarter in tax and VAT, business rates, supporting the government and supporting those who don't work. And what they want to do is impose very, very expensive new regulations to make it almost impossible. We can't even break even. If it wasn't for my helicopter flying husband, who works for the air ambulance, this farm wouldn't be able to manage as it is. And now we're forced into a situation where we may actually have to close, because we just simply can't afford to support these animals if the council don't let us have the adoring public in to meet them.
And Sarah, you said this is an ex-forces family. What sort of, I suppose, gentle therapeutic care do reindeer offer? What sort of animal are they like to have around? For someone with such a stressful professional background like your own, they must be perfect company.
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots and lots of adults with learning disabilities. We have children that come in from hospitals, and we also have service members that come here to let their families have a lovely, relaxed environment where they're speaking to other service people, and they know that they're in a safe environment to spend time with these animals. These animals are not dangerous. They're not aggressive at all. They're more like ponies and dogs than anything else in the animal kingdom.
All right, Sarah Sutton, really good to talk to you. She's a reindeer herder. Now, Somerset Council said, we understand that obtaining zoo licence is a lengthy process, and we've been mindful of the practicalities involved both leading up to and throughout the application. We'll continue to provide advice and assistance in any way we can.
This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Don't go anywhere. Let's have the weather first.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Storm Bram is well and truly with us. The greatest problem likely to be this afternoon, this evening, with the strength of the wind, particularly for Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland, where we have amber wind warning in place. There's the storm system. It's already brought a lot of heavy rain, continued risk of flooding as the rain continues to fall, and it's very windy already around western coasts, particularly for Wales and southwest England. Something a bit drier across parts of the east at times. times it may brighten up, but the winds continue to strengthen around this circulation. As I said, an amber warning in place for Northern Ireland through this afternoon. It's quite mild, but it doesn't really feel particularly mild with the strength of the wind. And I say that's the biggest cause for concern later today through the afternoon and into this evening and overnight, particularly across the northwest of Scotland. Amber warnings in place here for gusts of wind of 70, 80, perhaps in exposed areas 90 miles an hour. That is likely to cause some disruption, power issues. The amber warning in place across the west of Northern Ireland until 7 o'clock this evening. Yellow warnings in place for much of the night across northern Britain. In the south, things should start to calm down. It will certainly turn a bit drier through this evening, and the winds won't be as lively, but staying very, very windy in that northwestern corner. As I said, gusts of 80 to 90 miles an hour, likely to cause some significant disruption, slowly easing a bit through the night, but it stays very windy into Wednesday across the far north. It'll be a mild night and a bright and blustery day for many on Wednesday. Still very, very windy at times in northern Scotland, still a potential for further disruption, but generally things calming down as you go through Wednesday. Quite a bit of sunshine on offer actually over the Midlands, southern England and much of Wales. So things will be drying out here a little bit, and the winds will continue to slowly ease across the far north during the day. Not quite as mild as today, but temperatures still above average for the time of year.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Oh, that's so cute. You got a birthday present for Eamon.
What do you mean so cute? It's wrapped in Tottenham Hotspur paper.
That's what's so cute. I bet you love that.
There you go. Look at that. It's in Tottenham Hotspur paper. Would you like it now?
Yeah.
Come on.
Open it now.
Come on, birthday boy.
I can't possibly
Happy birthday.
I can't possibly see what you could have bought me from the Tottenham Hotspur shop that would be of any interest. Oh, it's this to do with Big Pat.
What?
This is Big Pat.
Listen, don't get overexcited. That's all I can say.
Well, the paper aside,
Apart from the paper.
Oh, an SPV vehicle.
There it is.
Absolutely incredible.
A what?
That's from Captain Scarlet.
Do.
Oh,
yeah.
no. You did say you wanted toys.
That is joyous, Paul. Thank you very much indeed,
Happy
my
birthday.
friend.
Are you going to keep it in the box, or are you going to play with it? I'll have to get another one.
What if I take it out and put it back in the box?
Yeah, I think we'll be all right.
I've never had one this size before.
How big was the other one you had then? Was it smaller?
About the size of the box.
Oh, right. OK, nice.
Yeah, this is very cute. Very, very good.
What is it?
It's a Corgi SPV vehicle. It's from Captain Scarlet. Special Patrol Vehicle.
Oh, a special patrol vehicle.
Yeah, yeah. When you were a kid, when I was
come on,
10
Ellie.
years
It's an
of age,
SPV. It's a special patrol
what is an SPV?
vehicle.
Oh, lovely. I'm so pleased that you're happy.
That's
well
actually
done, Quitty.
quite tasteful paper.
It's not bad, is it? Do you not want the paper? Do you not want to keep the Spurs paper as a souvenir?
You've also got a little Spurs card here. Do you see that?
Yeah.
And it says, Eamon, happy birthday from Paul. You've got the nicest handwriting in the world.
Oh, really? Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's like a celebrity's handwriting. Well, you are a celeb.
Oh, now, please. It's not my birthday, everyone.
Anyway, happy birthday, Eamon.
Anyway, happy birthday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 9th of December. I'm Charlie Peters.
And I'm Nana Akua.
Now, Donald Trump has launched a blistering attack on Europe, calling its leaders weak and politically correct. In a wide-ranging interview, he gives no reassurance on Ukraine and threatens to shake up European politics.
The chair of the National Grooming Gang inquiry is set to be announced in Parliament imminently. Draft terms of reference will also be published. We'll be broadcasting that live shortly.
Well, footage filmed by a schoolgirl as she was abducted from a park and raped by 2 asylum seekers is so disturbing that one of the lawyers involved said it would spark riots if the public ever saw it.
Warnings of a danger to life as Storm Bram batters Britain with torrential rain and winds reaching 90 miles an hour.
The sky is dreich and I am drucket, and we haven't even started in the high winds yet. 4 amber warnings show Storm Bram is making its presence known, with up to 90-mile-an-hour winds expected in the northwest of Scotland.
Well, pub landlords are warning of dire consequences as a major hike in business rates looms for 2026. Is the Chancellor's plan pushing pubs to breaking point?
A London teacher was investigated by police and barred from working with children after telling a Muslim pupil Britain is a Christian state.
And migrants crossing the Channel are being used to smuggle heroin into Britain in a new deal between people smugglers and drug gangs.
And Labour wants week-long bereavement leave to cover even a distant cousin's death. Employers are asking, where does it end? So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me, I'll be honest, that the whole people smuggling thing has ended with now the notion that perhaps they're trafficking drugs and are offering people this opportunity to come here to Britain without paying, and if they do something bad like smuggle drugs, it's just ridiculous. This is, you know, the government have become totally obsolete in all of this.
It's been a national security issue for years. I think what we're hearing about today and what we'll learn more about with our guests later in the programme just reaffirms that, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not surprising. You and I, we all knew that obviously there was something more going on, and there always would be if this was exposed and left open as such an obvious way to smuggle things into this country. And it's not really been challenged by the government, and I'm wondering why they're not doing enough about it.
Well, they scrapped Rwanda on day one. They said they wanted to smash the gangs, but so far all they're smashing is records. Well, let us know what you think. Send your views, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Before we get cracking, let's go speak to Tatiana Sanchez, who's got all our latest news headlines.
Charlie, thank you. The top stories. An Afghan national has been charged with raping 2 14-year-old girls in a flat in Bolton, Greater Manchester Police has said today. 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash was arrested on Sunday following a report of a rape at a flat in Middle Holton and has been charged with 2 counts of rape of a girl aged under 16, 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of assault by penetration. Police say he had allegedly been in contact with the victims online before meeting them. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. The UK government's been urged to reveal the identity of Stakeknife, the Army's top spy in the Provisional IRA, following the publication of a major independent probe into his activities. It's widely accepted that the late Republican Freddie Scappaticci was the agent, codenamed Stakeknife. He was linked to 14 murders and 15 abductions and worked in a ruthless IRA unit known as the Nutting Squad. Sir Ian Livingston, the head of Operation Canova, said it's in the public interest that Stakeknife is named, adding the government's neither confirm nor deny policy for agents cannot be used to protect those who commit grotesque serious crime. MI5 has been accused of attempting to conceal the truth about the links it had with Stakeknife. Elsewhere, 2 men have been charged in connection with an incident at London's Heathrow Airport, which left 21 people requiring treatment. 31-year-old Tyrone Richards and 24-year-old Anton Clark Butcher have each been charged with 2 counts of robbery and 2 counts of administering a noxious substance after the incident at Heathrow's Terminal 3 on Sunday. The Met Police says officers were called around 8 a.m. to a multi-storey car park following reports of multiple people being assaulted. The London Ambulance Service attended the scene and treated 21 people, including a 3-year-old girl. 5 people were taken to hospital. Their injuries are not believed to be life-changing or life-threatening. The Conservatives will draw a line on which health issues the state treats as disabilities in a bid to cut the UK's benefits bill, Kemi Badenoch says. The Tory leader said her party would carry out a full review of which conditions qualify a person for welfare support as part of plans to get Britain working again.
What last month's budget showed is that Labour have given up on people like Ruth. Last year, they raised taxes and destroyed jobs. And because of that, we now have hundreds of thousands fewer people in work. We have 1 million more people claiming universal credit since last year's budget. Not since the election, since last year's budget, 1 million more people are on universal credit. They could have done something about this. They could have changed course, they could have backed business, brought taxes down, but instead they taxed hard-working people to pay for benefits.
Downing Street says that Sir Keir Starmer told ministers the UK is continuing to work with all its partners to secure peace in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Donald Trump says Russia has the upper hand in peace negotiations with Ukraine and that Volodymyr Zelensky needs to get his act together and start accepting things. This as Ukraine's preparing to present a revised peace plan to the White House as it seeks to avoid making territorial concessions to Russia. Efforts continue to assemble an international coalition prepared to offer ongoing military support to Kyiv in the event of a peace deal. While the UK and France have proposed deploying international troops in Ukraine, several key defence players in Europe, including Germany and Italy, have expressed scepticism about that idea. Shadow Work and Pension Secretary Helen Whately spoke to GB News this morning.
That in Europe we need to play our part and be at the forefront of support for Ukraine in their fight against Russian aggression. And so Keir Starmer actually did the right thing here in getting Zelensky and European leaders together and to show the strength of our support. I think we all want to see an end to this horrible conflict, and it's crucial that it's an end that Ukraine is content with.
Elsewhere, the Met Office has issued several danger-to-life weather warnings for rain and wind in parts of Scotland, Wales and southwest England amid Storm Bram. Heavy rainfall and strong winds are expected to cause disruption across parts of the UK today and into tomorrow morning. An amber weather warning for very strong and disruptive winds have been issued for northwest Scotland, as the Met Office said the storm could cause damage to buildings and homes, power cuts and travel disruption tonight. The Met Office says gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour are expected for a few hours, and some places may even experience gusts of up to 90 miles per hour. And victims of maternity failings say they're disappointed with the findings of an interim report which they fear will have no teeth to make any changes. An investigation into NHS maternity services is underway after a series of shocking scandals. The National Maternity and Neonatal Investigation is being led by Baroness Amos, who said nothing prepared her for the amount of unacceptable care families currently receive. A report has been released documenting her initial reflections and impressions after meeting families and visiting hospitals. She will investigate 12 NHS trusts in total, including Oxford University Hospitals, which runs the world-renowned John Radcliffe Hospital. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3325 and €1.1451. The price of gold, £3,155.64 per ounce. The FTSE 100 is at 9,656 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
All right, good afternoon, Britain. It is 9 minutes past 1. We have some breaking news now because the incoming chair of the Grooming Gang's National Inquiry has been named as Baroness Longfield. Anne Longfield, the former Children's Commissioner, she is going to be named as the chair of the Grooming Gang's Inquiry. According to multiple sources speaking to GB News, that announcement coming very shortly from the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. We also know that 2 expert panel members are going to be confirmed as supporting Baroness Longfield, and that also the Home Secretary will also announce a draft terms of reference. This comes, Nana, obviously after the Conservatives put forward their own terms of reference proposals for this inquiry yesterday. It'll be very interesting to compare the two, but the breaking news this hour is that Anne Longfield, Baroness Longfield, the former Children's Commissioner, will be the chair of the Grooming Gang's National Inquiry, set to be announced by the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, shortly in Parliament.
Right, well, if you've just tuned in, it's just coming up to 11 minutes after 1 o'clock. This is Good Afternoon Britain. Now, earlier today, Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch set out her plans to reform Britain's welfare system. Moments ago, our political correspondent Olivia Utley sat down with the Tory leader.
Kemi Badenoch, nearly 1 million Brits aren't working. You say you're happy to tell it like it is. Is this generation of young people, on average, more lazy and entitled than their parents' generation?
So you're talking about 1 million young people. I think the number of Brits not working is 6 million, but we're talking about the young people who are not in education, employment or training. That is not right. I think that it is a complex problem. It's not just laziness or entitlement. Many of them don't have jobs to go to. Many employers saying that they can't afford to employ young people. It's too expensive because they need a lot of training. We need to make sure we create the jobs and also have that pushed so that they understand that they've got to get to work. The welfare state doesn't exist for people who just don't feel like working.
So it's not just a question of laziness and entitlement, but you do believe that there are people deliberately gaming the system to get more money out of the state. That does sound a bit like laziness and entitlement.
Definitely people gaming the system. We have seen evidence of it. You know, you look on social media, you have these sickfluencers who actually talk about how to call up the benefits office and say you have anxiety, you can't turn up. We've just got to scrap that stuff. We need to be firm and fair, not just trying to be fair and accommodate everyone's wish. We also need to stop paying benefits to people who are not from this country. We've got reciprocal deals with the EU so that British citizens can get things in the EU. But with other countries, we don't need to be paying benefits and giving everyone, social housing and so on in the way that we are doing. We want people who come to our country to be able to contribute to our country, not just come here because it's an easy life and take us for a ride.
Do you think the majority of people on benefits with mental health conditions, i.e. more than 50%, could work given the right support and the right jobs?
We need to make sure that they do have support. And yes, I do think that there is a lot more that we can do to get them into work. The numbers that we're seeing now are astronomical. It is not feasible for 1 in 4 people to be self-reporting as disabled. That's not right. The definition of disability has been expanded beyond what we used to understand it to be. What can we do to help those people? How can we make sure we tighten up a lot of loopholes which are allowing people who can work not to work?
This press conference, complete with the Tory faithful cheering you on, felt straight from the Nigel Farage playbook. Do you think Nigel Farage is a good politician, and are you taking a leaf out of his book?
Well, I'm taking a leaf out of the Conservative book, which is to make sure we talk about what we believe in and why. And I think for too long, actually, we didn't do that. We were so busy being in government, we forgot to make the argument. I want us to start making arguments again, remind people not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it, why certain things don't work. So, people said they weren't seeing enough of me, so I'm coming out as much as possible to make sure that they hear the Conservative message.
What you believe sounds quite similar to what Nigel Farage believes, both on welfare. This reminds me of a press conference I went to about a month ago, which Lee Anderson was talking at, and on immigration as well. Would you ever, under any circumstances, consider an informal or formal alliance or coalition with Reform?
So Reform doesn't actually believe what we believe on welfare. They wanted to lift the 2-child benefit cap, paying families £3,500 for every child that they have. This is on top of child benefit, which is not capped for number of children. We're the only party who voted against that. We're the only party who stood up for all those hardworking people out there. And I want them to know that there's only one party that's standing up for the working man and woman, for all those people who are struggling and feel that no one's speaking up for them. And that's the Conservative Party.
Just very quickly, the chair of the Grooming gangs inquiry and the terms of reference are set to be announced in Parliament later today. Have you been consulted about that?
No, but you would have noticed that we had a press conference yesterday asking the government, to pull their socks up and do this. We even wrote a terms of reference for them. So, as always, the Conservative Party is having to do the homework, not just for Labour, but also for Reform, explaining to them how things work so that we can actually just get things moving. We called for a grooming gang inquiry a year ago, and Keir Starmer dismissed it. We forced a U-turn. We're the ones who are standing up for those victims. This is not about political parties. It's about making sure we get justice for those victims. And what I'll be looking out to see is if the victims and survivors themselves are happy with what the government has done. We know that the government was very happy to kick this into the long grass. If they bring something that is substandard to Parliament, we will be holding them to account.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you very much.
Thank you, Olivia.
Oh, that was Kemi Badenoch earlier speaking to Olivia Attlee, but we can now speak directly to Olivia Attlee, our political correspondent at GB News. Olivia, so we have now the news of the new chair for the inquiry. Your thoughts on this?
So Baroness Longfield, the former Children's Commissioner, she was widely respected on both sides of the House, and there will be relief on the Labour backbenches that there is finally a chair. We await detail on the terms of reference. It'll be really interesting to see, as Kemi Badenoch there said yesterday, the Conservatives released some terms of reference for the grooming gangs inquiry, and it'll be interesting to see whether that has been incorporated into what Labour says. In that interview there, you heard Kemi Badenoch saying that the Conservatives have done the work for Labour and Reform. I thought it was interesting too that when I asked her directly whether she would ever consider under any circumstances a formal or informal alliance or coalition with Reform, the Conservative leader didn't actually rule it out. It was fascinating to me how similar that press conference today felt to the ones that I've been going to recently that Nigel Farage and Lee Anderson have been hosting. They've got the party faithful behind them. It's almost the style of a Trump rally getting the faithful on board. It seems like Kemi Badenoch has taken on a lot of feedback over the past few months. If you remember those first 6 months when we heard almost nothing from the leader of the opposition, she now seems to realise that taking away and having time to reflect just isn't something that she has the luxury of doing. She must be forward and visible all the time. Today, this press conference wasn't really anything new. She was toughening up her line on welfare. She said, and this is the first time she said it in such explicit terms, that people who come here from other countries should not be entitled to benefits. She said we need to scrap this when talking about people who are gaming the system or trying to exaggerate their disabilities in order to get more money out of the taxpayer. I also asked her during the press conference whether the triple lock, which we now know costs £11 billion more per year than pensions simply rising in line with wages, should be scrapped. She had a better and clearer rehearsed answer than the last time I asked her that question. She said that no, it shouldn't be scrapped. Changing the way pensions are done is simply dividing up the money in different ways. Anyone can divide up people's money. The Conservatives are the only party who can get the economy growing again. The Conservatives clearly now have a much, much stronger message than they've had at any time over the past 18 months. And it does seem that it's beginning to cut through a little bit with the public. The Conservatives polling is just beginning to inch its way up. But as yet, the next election, as it stands, is Nigel Farage's to lose.
All right, Olivia Attlee, thank you very much.
Right, moving on now. Severe weather warnings have been issued ahead of Storm Bram, which is forecast to hit the UK today and tomorrow. Gusts of up to 90 miles per hour are likely across northwest Scotland, but strong winds will be felt widely. Let's go now and speak to our reporter Doogie Beattie for all the latest. Doogie, how are you getting on?
You can see the skies behind me have turned very, very dark indeed. Gusts of wind now starting to come up the Erne waterway, and really some of them are quite hard gusts, to be honest. And then it will move on upwards towards Donegal and out the top end across Londonderry before eventually making land in Scotland. Now, this is meant to be the damaging part of this storm. There was a lot of heavy rain this morning, but the councils were well ahead of the game in that, making sure that waterways were clear and that drains were cleaned. but really and truly you can now start to even feel it in the air. When storms start to arrive, you can feel a low in the air. And of course Storm Bram is named after Bram Stoker, who was from Dublin, an Irish novelist famous for Dracula, but he wrote Dracula inspired by what he's seen in Monaghan, which is only really about 15-20 miles away from me where I stand now as the crow flies. So it's due to hit at about 2:30 this afternoon in this area, and you can actually feel those gusts really starting to come now. We'll keep you informed of how it's getting on within the next few hours. There has been a lot of cancellations in around Northern Ireland, Christmas markets, Christmas lights, even as far as Belfast, and that's on the east coast here, have closed for today, expecting damage to come out of this storm.
Thank you, Doogie.
Right, now it's time for our Great British giveaway and your chance to win our biggest cash prize this year ever, an incredible £85,000. Here are all the details you need.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date with an incredible £85,000 to be won. That's right, £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you with your feet up, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. £85,000 is a massive amount of money and it could be yours. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed.
This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, as the chair of the National Grooming Gangs Inquiry is set to be officially announced in Parliament. That's Baroness Anne Longfield. But after the break...
A teacher banned from working with children after telling a pupil Britain is a Christian state. All of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. It's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Brave.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Look at us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What do now? They are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Now it's fast approaching 26 minutes after 1 o'clock. According to The Telegraph, a teacher was banned from working with children after telling a Muslim child that Britain is still a Christian state.
As the primary school teacher was referred to his local child protection board, and also a senior detective from the Met was involved after comments that they made to the pupil at a school in London.
Right, let's speak to External Affairs Officer at the Free Speech Union, Connie Shaw. Connie, what more can you tell us?
Well, this is another case in our dossier that we have at the Free Speech Union of people who are being referred to safeguarding bodies deemed a risk towards children simply because they more often than not have centre-right leaning views, or in this case just enforcing the rules of this non-faith school and stating facts. This was a teacher who worked at a secular school and he has been sacked as a result of making hurtful Islamophobic comments about Islam. It's reported in the Telegraph that he admonished students for washing their feet in the sinks in the normal lavatories and he explained as a result of that the school was non-secular, that Britain was still a Christian country, and he'd previously given an assembly about British values as it was part of the curriculum. And he was reported by a parent to the school. The school then reported him to LADO, or the local authority designated officer, and as a result he was investigated by them. A Metropolitan Police child abuse team also got involved. The police were also called to respond to a hate incident. Despite the police dropping this case, he was subsequently sacked from the school, and he will have, because he was found to be a substantial emotional risk to the children, causing them emotional harm. That will make it very difficult for him to get another job. He is now, with the backing of the Free Speech Union, suing the school.
There is no evidence, though, of him saying anything else that was potentially seen as Islamophobic or slurring people who are of a Muslim faith. It was just purely the fact that he had initially talked about washing the feet in the sink, which you don't wash feet in the sink in this country. I mean, I don't know about you, but yeah, unless... I washed my very small child, in the sink when he was very small. But
well, the context of this case, which wasn't reported in the Telegraph, was that this teacher was very concerned about the sectarian bullying that was going on in the school, the fact that there were some Muslim students who were essentially picking on other Muslim students for not being orthodox enough. Girls who weren't wearing hijabs were being picked on. Students who weren't fasting in the same way as others were being picked on. And the teacher was trying to remind students that this is, one, a secular school, but also that we have religious tolerance in this country and that shouldn't be happening. So that's the wider context of this case. Yet it seems that in this case there's been a capitulation to particular sensitivities around Islam.
Connie, do you think there's any chance that this teacher may get support from the parents of those less stringent Muslim pupils who were, as you say, being bullied by the more serious followers of the rules and regulations of Islam at the school? That this teacher, did he have any support from other pupils and their families?
I'm unaware of those details, but obviously this is within the context, you could argue, with the definition of Islamophobia that the government is coming up with, that we're waiting for details on that. One of the reasons that it's harmful for this definition that isn't often spoken about is that it's protective of Muslims who aren't extreme, who do want to speak out against the extreme aspects of Islam. So there could well be parents who want to support this teacher but are afraid of the repercussions for themselves, and that's one of the reasons why it's dangerous to have a definition of Islamophobia. And this case is a prime example of why this definition should be absolutely campaigned against because it prevents people from simply doing their jobs.
Do you have any information of the ratio of Muslims to non-Muslims at this school, or just out of interest, because I'm wondering, obviously it is not a secular school, first of all, but do we have any idea of what the ratio is?
Well, it is a secular school, and one of the comments that the teacher made that was reported was that he said to the students, if you'd like to go to an Islamic school, there's one down the road. This one is a non-faith school. I don't have the exact figures, but it seems that there were enough Muslim students for it to actually cause issues in the classroom with bullying involved.
And Connie, on this Islamophobia definition, the government is saying that anti-Muslim hate needs to be taken very seriously, but there have been lots of different campaigns within the promotion for this definition, more extreme than others. The original definition being brought up by the APPG on British Muslims had a really wide-ranging set of concerns. That seems to have been a bit more limited now, not due to this sort of campaigning, but what the Free Speech Union is revealing with this case, does that not show that actually promotion of any definition will capture this level of sensitivity as well?
Well, the whole point of a definition that Labour is arguing that by having the definition that we'll be able to stop the hate, but we've had a definition of anti-Semitism for a while now, and we've seen anti-Semitism absolutely rocket. So there's no evidence to suggest that a definition would make it easier to stop these incidents. And of course, it's already illegal to harass people on the basis of their faith or their ethnicity or race. That's already covered. So what this definition will do to improve things has been unproven. As you say, Charlie, the definition that was created in 2018 was so wide-reaching that it said that Islamophobia was rooted in racism. It stopped people from being able to talk about the grooming gangs. And the concern is that lots of the people who backed that definition are now heavily involved in this current working group. And the government has been very lacking in its transparency over what they've come up with. And we're just waiting now to see what the result is.
I'm sorry, we'll have to cross now to the House of Commons, where the Home Secretary is announcing the chair of the Grooming Gangs inquiry. Let's listen in.
Predators, they then found themselves belittled and even blamed when it was justice they were owed. In January, my predecessor asked Baroness Casey of Blackstock, who's here with us today, to conduct a national audit on group-based child sexual exploitation and abuse. With devastating clarity, Baroness Casey revealed the horror that lies behind that jargonistic term. It is vital that we too call these crimes what they were: multiple sexual assaults committed by multiple men on multiple occasions. Children were submitted to beatings and gang rapes. Many contracted sexually transmitted infections. Some were forced to have abortions. Others had their children taken from them. But it was not just these awful crimes that now shame us. There was also an abject failure by the state in its many forms to fulfil its most basic duty: protecting the young and vulnerable. Worse still, some in positions of power turned a blind eye to the horror, even covered it up. Despite a shameful lack of national data, Baroness Casey was clear that in some local areas where data was available, and I quote, disproportionate numbers of men from Asian ethnic backgrounds were amongst the suspects. Like every member of my community who I know, I am horrified by these acts. We must root out this evil once and for all. The sickening acts of a minority of evil men, as well as those in positions of authority who look the other way, must not be allowed to marginalise or demonise entire communities of law-abiding citizens. What is required now is a moment of reckoning. We must cast fresh light on this darkness. In her audit, Baroness Casey called for a national inquiry. In June, the government accepted that recommendation. And today, I can announce the chair and panel that will form the leadership of the inquiry and a draft of the inquiry's terms of reference. The inquiry will be chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield. As many in this place will know, Baroness Longfield was the Children's Commissioner from 2015 to 2021. She has devoted her life to children's rights, including running a charity supporting and protecting young people and working for Prime Ministers of different political parties. In recognition of her service, Baroness Longfield was elevated to the Lords earlier this year. At that point, she took the Labour whip, which on taking up this appointment, she will now resign. Alongside her, I can also announce her two fellow panellists. The first is Zoe Billingham, CBE. Zoe is a former inspector at His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and currently serves as chair of Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust. She brings deep expertise in safeguarding and policing, specifically in holding forces to account. The second panellist is Eleanor Kelly, CBE. Eleanor is the former Chief Executive of Southwark Council. In 2017, she supported the survivors of the London Bridge terrorist attacks and the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire of the same year. Together, the chair and panel bring deep experience of championing children's rights, knowledge of policing and local government, and crucially, a proven track record of holding powerful institutions to account. Each individual was recommended by Baroness Casey, and her recommendation follows recent engagement with victims. The first thing the chair and panel will do, alongside Baroness Casey, is meet with victims later this week. Today, we also published the draft terms of reference, which I will place in the Library of the House. Baroness Casey was clear this inquiry must be time limited to ensure that justice is swift for those who have already waited too long. For that reason, it will be completed within 3 years, supported by a £65 million budget. The inquiry will be a series of local investigations overseen by a national panel with full statutory powers. Baroness Longfield has confirmed that Oldham will have a local investigation. The chair and panel will determine the other locations in due course, and no area will be able to resist a local investigation. These terms of reference are clear on a number of vital issues. The inquiry is focused specifically on child sexual abuse committed by grooming gangs. It will consider explicitly the background of offenders, including their ethnicity and religion, and whether the authorities failed to properly investigate what happened out of a misplaced desire to protect community cohesion. The inquiry will act without fear or favour, identifying individual, institutional and systemic failure, inadequate organisational responses and failures of leadership. It will also work hand in hand with the police. Where new criminality comes to light, be that by the perpetrators or those who covered up their crimes, the inquiry will pass evidence to law enforcement so they can take forward any further prosecutions and put more of these evil men behind bars. The inquiry must and will place victims and survivors at the forefront, with a charter setting out how they will participate and how their views, experiences and testimony will shape the inquiry's work. As I have said already, the terms are in draft form. The chair will now consult on them with victims and other stakeholders, and they will be confirmed no later than March, when the inquiry can begin its work in earnest. Alongside launching this inquiry, Baroness Casey's audit contained a number of other recommendations, which the government accepted in full. As the inquiry begins its work, we continue righting these wrongs. I can announce today that I have commissioned new research from UK Research and Innovation to rectify the unacceptable gaps in our understanding of perpetrators' backgrounds and motivations, including their ethnicity and religion. My predecessor wrote to all police forces calling on them to improve the collection of ethnicity data. And while the Home Secretary does not currently have the power to mandate that this is collected, I will rectify this by legislating at the earliest possible opportunity. The Department for Education is currently interrogating gaps in children in need data identified in the audit, which seems to underreport the scale of this crisis. My right honourable friend, the Education Secretary, will soon publish the findings of an urgent review of this data conducted by her department. Across government, the audit identified that poor data sharing continues to put children at risk. As a result, we are introducing a legal duty for information sharing between safeguarding partners. We are creating a unique identifier for each child, linking all data across government. and we are upgrading police technology to ensure data can be shared across agencies. The audit also identified an absurdity in our legal system that saw some child rapists convicted of lesser crimes. As a result, we are now changing the law to make clear that children cannot consent when they have been raped by an adult, and so perpetrators are charged for the hideous crime they have in fact committed. While the law has protected abusers from the consequences of their crimes, it has too often punished victims. Some survivors were convicted for crimes they had been coerced into, continuing their trauma to this day. We are already legislating in the Crime and Policing Bill to disregard offences related to prostitution. And the Ministry of Justice is now working with the Criminal Cases Review Commission to ensure that they are resourced to review applications from individuals who believe that they were wrongly criminalised. The national audit identified further weaknesses in relation to taxi licensing. Abusers were applying for licences in areas where controls were lax to circumvent protection put in place by local councils to tackle abuse. My right honourable friend, the Transport Secretary, will soon be legislating to close this dangerous loophole in the regulation of taxis. The audit was clear that justice has not been done. Baroness Casey requested that a new national police investigation was required to bring offenders to justice. Last month, the National Crime Agency launched Operation Beacon Port, reviewing previously closed cases of child sexual exploitation. It has already flagged more than 1,200 cases for potential reinvestigation, more than 200 of which are high-priority cases of rape. The evil men who committed these crimes and thought they got away with it will find they have nowhere to hide. The audit finally called on the government to fund the delivery of its recommendations. Alongside investment in the inquiry itself, I can announce today that a further £3.65 million will be committed this year to the policing operation, survivor support and research into grooming gangs. This work, Madam Deputy Speaker, is essential. But without truth, there can be no justice. Today, I have announced the chair and panel of an inquiry which will shine a bright light on this dark moment in our history. They will do so alongside the victims of these awful crimes, who have waited too long to see justice done. This inquiry is theirs, not ours. So I call on all those present to put politics aside for a moment and to support this chair and her panel in the pursuit of truth and justice. And I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Home Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let us remember victims are at the heart of this. Young girls, some only 10 years old, were groomed and gang raped by men of mainly Pakistani origin. Girls like Jane, just 12 years old when she was raped by an illegal immigrant. When she was found by police, instead of arresting the rapist, they arrested Jane. Or Anna, only 15 years old, who repeatedly told social workers that she had been gang raped, but instead of helping her, they allowed her to marry her main abuser in an Islamic ceremony, attended by the very social worker who should have protected her. Last week, sentencing remarks were published from several of these terrible cases. I warn the House, some of these are extremely graphic. One perpetrator, Mohammed Karar, raped a 12-year-old girl, and when she tried to fight back, he hit her with a baseball bat and then inserted the handle into her vagina. He also injected her with heroin and forced her to take crack cocaine. Another man, Arshid Hussain, viciously beat a young girl, stubbed out a cigarette on her chest, tied her up, and she was then repeatedly raped by numerous different Asian men. The same man, Arshid Hussain, also called a victim who had been raped and abused since the age of just 7, quotes, white trash. He said that Asian girls would not do what he was forcing her to do. There was an explicit racial element to his crime. He was raping his victim because she was white. The identity of the majority of the perpetrators is something that should not be hidden. a 2020 study by academics at the universities of Southampton and Reading reviewed 498 grooming gang convictions. They found that 83% of the perpetrators were of Muslim background, mainly, specifically, of Pakistani heritage. The Casey report and the Telford report made similar observations. The fact is, these crimes were deliberately covered up by those in authority who were more interested in so-called community relations and in avoiding being called racist than they were in protecting young girls. I spoke to a retired police officer who was told by a serving chief superintendent to stop investigating abuse by Pakistani origin taxi drivers in Bradford because the local police did not want to offend Bradford's Muslim community. And I've sent the name of that officer to the police for investigation. A former Labour MP, Simon Danchuk, was even told by the then chair of the Parliamentary Labour Party to stop asking questions to avoid antagonising the Muslim community in his town. Yet when the need for a national inquiry into this was raised in January, the Prime Minister disgracefully smeared those calling for an inquiry as, quotes, far right. What the Prime Minister claimed was a far right bandwagon in January had become government policy by June. So will the Home Secretary please apologise on behalf of the Prime Minister for what he said last January? The truth is, this should not have taken several months and the threat of a vote in Parliament to agree to this inquiry in the first place, and it should not have taken another 6 months to appoint a chair. That is what the survivors and their families told me yesterday. One of the most disturbing elements of this scandal is the deliberate cover-up of these crimes, as I have said. So can the Home Secretary assure the House that those in authority who covered up these crimes will be prosecuted for the offence of misconduct in public office? And will she ensure the inquiry refers such cases to the police for investigation? Can she confirm the inquiry will formally start in March of 2026 and that the final report will be published publicly 3 years later in March 2029? We have not yet seen the terms of reference. Survivors and their families, who I met yesterday, are concerned the scope of this inquiry may be too broad. So will the Home Secretary confirm it will focus specifically on localised, group-based grooming gangs, and that it will analyse the ethnicity and religious background of the perpetrators? She mentions local inquiries sitting underneath the national inquiry. Can she also specifically confirm that those local inquiries will be completely independent of those bodies they are investigating, particularly independent of local councils and independent of local police forces? They can't be allowed to investigate themselves. Will the Home Secretary also confirm that parents of survivors and victims will be able to serve on the panel as well? I spoke yesterday to 2 parents of survivors who felt they'd been excluded from the previous panels. Madam Deputy Speaker, for many survivors and victims, the truth has been hidden for far too long. These crimes were covered up because those in authority were more concerned about so-called community relations and avoiding being called racist than they were about protecting young children. That was an abject moral failure. The truth, at last, must come out.
Home Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Shadow Secretary of State for his remarks. Let me just say, as he was reading out excerpts from some of the court transcripts that have been made public, I, like other members in the House, have read some of those transcripts, and they do make for truly horrifying reading, and they are a reminder, the starkest reminder of all perhaps, for everyone in this House and beyond, that it is absolutely essential that we all collectively do right by the victims who have had such unimaginable horrors inflicted upon them, and I hope that that is the spirit in which we will all be able to engage across this House as the inquiry gets up and running and continues its work. I also want to say, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think this is a moment to elevate, now that we have a chair and panel in place, to elevate this discussion beyond our usual trade-offs of party politics across this dispatch box. The Shadow Secretary of State has a critique of the government. I will robustly defend the government of which I am a part. We have always been focused on the outcome of justice and truth for victims, less so the process itself, but it was this government that asked Baroness Casey to do her national audit. She followed the evidence and recommended this national inquiry, and that is what we are doing, and that is what we have supported. But now that we have a chair and a panel, I just think that this is a moment, if we're going to do right by the victims, who are a diverse cohort of people who will have different views and who will all feel, regardless of where they stand on this inquiry itself, some degree of anxiety about what will happen next, and will need some reassurance that we can rise above our usual political discourse and unite in support for the chair and panel as they do this important work. Let me say, for most of his detailed questions, the answer is a straightforward yes. So on scope, let me just reassure him, there is no dilution of the scope, and it is very clearly focused on exactly the problem that was named by Baroness Casey in her national audit. To the extent that the inquiry finds evidence of any potential misconduct in public office or other breaches of the law, of course, they are working very closely with our partners in law enforcement. The whole point for having this inquiry is to make sure that there are actions that result from these investigations and that people are properly held to account, including by facing the full force of the law. I'm sure that once the inquiry reports, they will have other things to say, potentially even about strengthening the law as well. So I think it's important we let the inquiry do their work, but they are not going to be held back from making any findings that lead to further investigations and accountability through the legal system. Let me also confirm to him on timings. March, the draft terms of reference will be confirmed no later than March. It could come a little earlier potentially, but up to three months for the draft terms of reference, and then up to 3 years for the inquiry to conclude, so no later than 2020, not March 29, with the report as well. And that is a timetable that the chair and the panel members have signed up for. On the local investigations, of course, it's right, they won't be investigating themselves. The work of the local investigation will be under the auspices of the chair and her panel, and they will be making sure that those investigations are held by them to the standard that they will set and follow themselves, and they will also decide which other areas they wish to be included in these local investigations, and I'm sure members will want to make representations to them, but no area anywhere in England or Wales will be able to resist having a local investigation under the auspices of this inquiry, which of course has all of the statutory powers that you would expect such an inquiry to have. I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've dealt with all of the issues that the Shadow Secretary of State has raised, but I do look forward to, I hope, a more constructive dialogue between us as the inquiry gets underway.
Champion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Wow, significant update there from the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, announcing and confirming that Baroness Anne Longfield will be the chair of the Grooming Gangs inquiry, and that there will be 2 expert panellists supporting Zoe Billingham, CBE, and Eleanor Kelly. Let's cross now to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who has been watching on in the House of Commons. Christopher Hope, a wide-ranging update there from the Home Secretary, long overdue, 6 months since this inquiry was announced. What do you make of it?
Well, it starts formally in March. We'll see the draft terms and conditions shortly. They're published in the House of Commons Library today. We'll try and get them for viewers as soon as we can. And then this goes for 3 years. It costs £65 million just the inquiry. So for me, the politics of this, and it's vital this is done properly, it will report on the eve of the next general election, which can be held as late as summer 2029. This could become an election issue, certainly if it's delayed past the election. That'll be controversial. So as things stand, though, you heard there from Shabana Mahmood, she is determined to get to the bottom of this. She said she announced those 3 individuals running it. We saw Baroness Longfield. We can discuss her in a minute, Charlie, but she was someone who did fight for children. She was very in terms of driving the agenda for children against Whitehall. She did that when she was a Children's Commissioner under the Tory government. Also supporting morning, Zoe Billingham, who's the chair of Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Trust, but crucially, she ran HM Inspector Constabulary, so used to holding police to account. That's vital. Eleanor Kelly is the other person helping there. She, of course, CEO of Southwark Council, but worked closely with victims both of the Grenfell attacks and those London Bridge attacks, so she can get on the side of victims and help understand why victims can so quickly fall out with what a government's trying to do. We saw that in the past few months, how the victims have lost faith and lost trust in the government for some of the ways it's trying to go ahead with this. It must be victims focused. We heard there from Shabana Mahmood. She will be meeting, or rather the chair will be meeting with victims this week, and it's very important how those meetings go. Will those victims feel listened to? Will those victims feel on side? It's complicated how it's going to work, Charlie. You may know more than this. There'll be an overarching panel and then local inquiries, but will those local inquiries be forced on local areas to hold them by the panel, or must they agree first to hold a local inquiry?
Well, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, said that no area will be able to resist the national panel's call for a local investigation in specific areas. And we broke the news before Shabana Mahmood spoke that Oldham's local inquiry, now cancelled, that's going to be replaced by one of these local investigations being chaired by this new Grooming Gangs national inquiry. So there'll be an oversight level, it seems, Chris, which has the powers to compel all the evidence and witnesses, etc. And they will then send in investigators into local areas.
So those powers, the powers to compel at the national level, they'll be conferred to the local level, who will be a proxy for Baroness Longfield at the local level.
That's right, and I think Oldham is the only area confirmed now, so their local inquiry cancelled. The barrister, Tom Crowther, no longer involved in the process the government announced in January. That is the only area that's confirmed so far. But, Chris, obviously there's been lots of pressure on other areas, including Bradford. Perhaps they will be one of the local areas that will be up and running by March, which Shabana Mahmood announced today.
That's right. We also heard other areas of government being pulled together by Shabana Mahmood, notably on detail of information, how information is collected by UK research and investment. UK research certainly on the background and ethnicity of ethnicity data. So we know a fuller picture here of who is committing these crimes. The DFE, the Department of Education, it also will look at its data under Bridget Phillips and publish a report on whether some of these areas are being overlooked. There'll be, in future, children cannot consent to be raped by an adult. By that I mean they cannot consent to sexual activity. That is vital. And also finally, on the Department for Transport, the regulation of taxis to stop perpetrators getting around it.
All right, Christopher, thank you very much. This is Good Afternoon Britain. Lots more coming up on today's show. Do not go anywhere.
We want to make the new year your best year yet, with a chance to win our greatest cash prize to date. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. Treat the family to that bucket list holiday you've always fancied. Get your dream car you've always wanted. Or just relax, safe in the knowledge that the coming year is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 2 o'clock on Tuesday, the 9th of December. I'm Nana Akua.
And I'm Charlie Peters.
Now, after months of delays and resignations, Baroness Anne Longfield has been appointed to the chair of the National Grooming Gang inquiry, and it follows a very turbulent search that saw multiple candidates drop out.
That's right, the £65 million inquiry starts in earnest in March. It runs for 3 years and reports back on the eve of the next general election campaign. The government finally gets its act together on the grooming gang scandal.
And Donald Trump has launched a blistering attack on Europe, calling its leaders weak and politically correct. In an interview, he's also said that there'll be no reassurance on Ukraine. He hasn't given one. And he's also threatened to shake up European politics.
Footage filmed by a schoolgirl as she was abducted from a park and raped by 2 asylum seekers is so disturbing. One of the lawyers involved says that it would spark riots if the public ever saw it.
And pub landlords are warning of dire consequences as a major hike in business rates looms for next year. Is the Chancellor's plan pushing pubs to breaking point?
Warnings of a danger to life as Storm Bram batters Britain with torrential rain and winds reaching 90 miles an hour.
Yes, amber warnings all around the UK show that Storm Bram is making its presence known. Trains have been cancelled, ferries too, with wind and rain on the plate of almost everybody in Scotland today.
So we now have the person who's going to chair the Grooming Gang inquiry, plus the 2 panellists who will be supporting her. I'm wondering, Charlie, what happened to the 5 people who were on the panel before? So some of the victims, they pulled out because they weren't happy with who was chairing them, and they weren't prepared to do it if Jess Phillips was involved. What's happened to it there?
Well, that survivor panel is still up and running.
Right.
Still plenty of people sitting on that, and they'll be meeting with Anne Longfield, Baroness Longfield, I think later this week. Possibly, okay. And I think the Home Secretary actually confirmed that in Parliament just now, alongside the 2 members of this expert panel supporting Baroness Longfield. What's interesting here is that the survivors, I know, they've spoken to us this morning, did not meet Baroness Longfield before she was selected as chair, but they will have an opportunity to put questions to her later this week, and they will have a lot of questions because obviously the involvement for them has been about helping to select a chair, and that was what they were doing previously in October, when it all sort of fell apart with 2 potential chairs withdrawing. Perhaps it seems now that the government are taking a different approach now. No interviews with the survivors, just select themselves, Baroness Casey helping out, and then once they've got the selection, they'll go to the victims for their views. Be interesting to hear what they say.
Well, she sounds like a good candidate, but what are the pros and cons? Are there positives and negatives?
Well, there are some curious work she's done recently, which might have an impact on her understanding of the issue. And just looking at work she's done, I mean, last month she said that there needs to be embedding a culture of anti-racism into the heart of schools, and that the Department of Education needs to make anti-racism a key thematic priority. When we think about the grooming gang scandal, it very much does not follow the typical narratives surrounding anti-racism. Most of the victims are white. Most of the perpetrators in many of these areas come from British Pakistani backgrounds. And when we think about sort of anti-racism dogma, Nana...
I'm thinking critical race theory, which I don't want to be included in any particular discussion, especially with children, because it's kind of actually perpetuates racism by reaffirming the belief that someone is being oppressed and someone is an oppressor, which you don't want to instill into the minds of children. If you don't tell them, then they don't know and everyone gets on with life.
I just wonder, how will someone who thinks potentially in that sort of manner, the sort of critical race theory perspective about the overrepresentation of black children, black boys, for example, in education systems, she's called for removal of racial bias in education systems. How will she grapple with the very alarming findings when we come to the grooming gang scandal with white children being overrepresented in abuse? We'll see.
It's interesting, because if it's racism, then maybe she will be able to see it both sides, so not just black against white against black, but any other colour against white as well. Well, send us your thoughts, your comments, gbnews.com/your say. But first, your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. The top stories, as you've been hearing, former Children's Commissioner Baroness Longfield will chair the inquiry into grooming gangs after months of delays. The inquiry was first announced by the Prime Minister in June. In October, the final two candidates to chair the inquiry dropped out of the process, which led to concerns it could take months to get someone in post. 5 women also resigned from the inquiry's victim liaison panel in a row over the scope of the probe being potentially widened. The inquiry follows a recommendation made by Baroness Louise Casey in her rapid audit looking at the scale of grooming gangs across the country. The Home Secretary said in the Commons today Baroness Anne Longfield will stand down as a Labour peer after she was chosen to chair the National Inquiry, and that she won't shy away from difficult or uncomfortable truths wherever we can find them.
The inquiry will act without fear or favour, identifying individual, institutional and systemic failure, inadequate organisational responses and failures of leadership. It will also work hand in hand with the police. Where new criminality comes to light, be that by the perpetrators or those who covered up their crimes, the inquiry will pass evidence to law enforcement so they can take forward any further prosecutions and put more of these evil men behind bars.
An Afghan national has been charged with raping 2 14-year-old girls in a flat in Bolton, Greater Manchester Police says. 28-year-old Sultani Bakatash was arrested on Sunday following a report of a rape at a flat in Middle Hulton and has been charged with 2 counts of rape of a girl aged under 16, 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of assault by penetration. Police said he had allegedly been in contact with the victims online before meeting them. Police say they're not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. The UK government has been urged to reveal the identity of Stakeknife, the army's top spy, in the provisional IRA following the publication of a major independent probe into his activities. It's widely accepted that the late Republican Freddie Scappaticci was the agent, codenamed Stakeknife. He was linked to 14 murders and 15 abductions and worked in a ruthless IRA unit known as the Nutting Squad. Sir Ian Livingston, the head of Operation Canova, says it's in the public interest that Stakeknife is named, adding the government's neither confirm nor deny policy for agents cannot be used to protect those who commit grotesque, serious crime. MI5 has been accused of attempting to conceal the truth about the links it had with Stakeknife. Elsewhere, the Conservatives will draw a line on which health issues the state treats as disabilities in a bid to cut the UK's benefits bill, Kemi Badenoch has said earlier today. The Tory leader said her party would carry out a full review of which conditions qualify a person for welfare support as part of plans to get Britain working again.
What last month's budget showed is that Labour have given up on people like Ruth. Last year, they raised taxes and destroyed jobs. And because of that, we now have hundreds of thousands fewer people in work. We have 1 million more people claiming universal credit since last year's budget. Not since the election, since last year's budget, 1 million more people are on universal credit. They could have done something about this. They could have changed course, they could have backed business, brought taxes down, but instead they taxed hard-working people to pay for benefits.
Sir Keir Starmer has told ministers the UK is continuing to work with all its partners to secure peace in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Donald Trump says Russia has the upper hand in peace negotiations with Ukraine and that Vladimir Zelensky needs to get his act together and start accepting things. It's as Ukraine is preparing to present a revised peace plan to the White House as it seeks to avoid making territorial concessions to Russia. Efforts continue to assemble an international coalition prepared to offer ongoing military support to Kyiv in the event of a peace deal. While the UK and France have proposed deploying international troops in Ukraine, several key defence players in Europe, including Germany and Italy, have expressed scepticism about that idea. And the Met Office has issued several danger-to-life weather warnings for rain and wind in parts of Scotland, Wales and southwest England amid Storm Bram. Heavy rainfall and strong winds are expected to cause disruption across parts of the UK today and into tomorrow morning, forecasters warn. The Met Office says the storm could cause damage to buildings and homes, power cuts and travel disruption tonight. Some places may even experience gusts of up to 90 miles per hour. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more news in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News financial report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound buying you $1.3325 and €1.1451. The price of gold is £3,155.64 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,656 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News financial report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 10 minutes past 2, and moments ago, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, announced that Baroness Longfield will be chairing the Grooming Gang's national inquiry. Here's a recap of what she had to say.
The inquiry will be chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield. As many in this place will know, Baroness Longfield was the Children's Commissioner from 2015 to 2021. She has devoted her life to children's rights, including running a charity supporting and protecting young people and working for Prime Ministers of different political parties.
Well, let's get the latest reaction from our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, what more can you tell us?
Well, Anne Longfield is widely regarded in Westminster as someone who fought vehemently for children in her time as Children Commissioner for about 7 years in the last decade or so, going to 2020, 2021, 22. She also fought against those lockdowns that were brought on and then the damage that was doing for children, and was one of her big areas. So she's someone who does view the world from a child-centric way, and I think that's how this scandal needs to be looked at. Forget everyone else. It's the children, now adults, but the children and how they are being treated. For example, you heard there Shabana Mahmood saying the law will be changed so a child under 16 cannot consent to sex, therefore cannot be consenting to being raped, as we've seen in some of these cases highlighted by the reporting of Charlie Peters and others. She is someone who is well regarded. I think the key moments going forward now are when she meets with these victims or the victims groups later this week. As Charlie said there, as far as we know, she hasn't met, didn't know who was being appointed until we disclosed it and revealed it on GB News and in Parliament. So that meeting is vital. And then, of course, the terms of reference published later today, we'll get hold of those for viewers and listeners, work out what that means. And, of course, it's in March next year or just before that when work starts. And me as a political journalist, this is a very politically difficult area, I think, for both parties, frankly, both parties in power, the Tories and Labour. This inquiry, costing £65 million, will report back in March 2029, the eve of the expected date of the general election.
All right, Christopher Hope. Also, lots of focus on the racial stereotyping and the effects of that in this inquiry. In the past, and indeed quite recently, Baroness Longfield has spoken about racial biases in education. Critics of that might see it as sort of a critical race theory approach. Well, she's going to have to look at a different sort of racial targeting and profiling in this scandal, isn't she?
No question, but I think you heard very clear language there from Shabana Mahmood. She says that will not be tolerated. This inquiry will be able to go to anywhere. It must not turn a blind eye to any issue of ethnicity, any racial element. You heard what Chris Phillips said there, the Shadow Home Secretary, some appalling descriptions of what these victims are being through. Many of the victims of racial attacks, by what Chris Phillips was saying, and they will not shy away from that. They're also collecting more information. They're trying to get more information from the Department for Education. They're going to ensure that taxi drivers can't use a licensing system to get around and get to children who are vulnerable. And also, crucially, and this was made by Keir Starmer earlier this year when they were having a problem finding a chair for the inquiry, she said that if they find any evidence of cover-ups or crimes that need investigating, she said the law will go there and will investigate and take action. The big concern had been that there'd be no legal action, or the police couldn't take any action for 3 years until this inquiry finishes. It seems now that these inquiries can take place concurrently with these local and national inquiries, Charlie.
OK, Chris, I hope. Thank you very much. Yes, we're going to see Oldham, the first of those local investigations. We reported this morning its local inquiry has been cancelled. Barrister Tom Crowther, meant to be leading it, no longer doing so. But Oldham will be part of the local investigations for the national inquiry with all those statutory powers. So that'll start from March of next year. I'll get reaction from Oldham victims and campaigners later today, I'm sure. All
right, well, it's just coming up to 2:15, and this is GB News. 2 teenage Afghan asylum seekers who abducted and raped a 15-year-old girl have been given custodial sentences.
Yes, so it's Jan Jahanzev was given 10 years and 8 months, with Isra Nirzal sentenced to 9 years and 10 months for the attack which took place in Leamington Spa in May.
Now, the pair who've been ordered to register as sex offenders for life could now face deportation, with their victims saying that the attack changed her as a person.
Well, let's speak now to the founder and director of Faith Matters, Fiaz Mughal. Fiaz, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And I suppose one of the main concerns we've heard from our audience covering this story today is a feeling that not only are we powerless to stop people like these two men coming into the country on small boats, but also concerns about the culture that they are bringing with them. What more can you tell us about the way of life in Afghanistan and indeed what they may have brought to Britain?
Well, it's pretty clear for anyone viewing what is happening in Afghanistan over the last decade plus that the fact around women's rights and the place of women in Afghanistan is virtually right at the bottom of society. I think even animals are probably treated slightly better. So the reality is the culture is one where women have absolutely no rights, and women are regarded in effect as probably, property in relation to what's happening in Afghanistan. Now, when you have young men, predominantly young men who come to the West and come to cultures where we see independent women who will go out by themselves, because Afghan culture really doesn't allow at this moment in time. Afghan culture used to allow, but under the Taliban, let me be more clear about that, Afghan women can't even go out without a male beside them. When they see single women who are independent and who are going about their lives, they may get assumptions in their mind that women are prey, that women are to be approached, to be abused maybe in terms of comments sexually, or even seen as being, open to approaches for sex because they're just single independent females. So that culture of Afghanistan under the Taliban of women being alone, autonomously getting on with their lives, gives, I'm afraid, some of these young males the view that these women are open to be preyed upon, at least in a way, verbally assaulted, or in this case, physically assaulted sexually, because they're autonomous, because they get about themselves. And we know in our society that is part and parcel of how our values are, and that women have every right, like a man, to do whatever a man can do in our society. So there is a clash of cultures, and there is a clash of understanding, and we need to be clear about that.
Yes, you are the founder and director of Faith Matters. Do you think that there is also a connection with faith in this?
There isn't a connection. There isn't a connection with faith in this. Let me explain why. Because if we look at other Muslim countries, if you look at places like Tunisia, which also have problems around sexism like any other country, but it also has problems of sexism. The reality is you have different gradations of how women are treated. The Gulf, women are treated differently. They're in a better position than Afghanistan. In North Africa, they are sometimes in a better position. Sometimes they're in an equal position. So it's not an interpretation that the faith is driving this kind of analogy. And again, faith can leave things open to common sense. And common sense means that actually, as mothers, our sisters, women need to be treated equally with dignity. What this is we need to look at certain countries where there is war, where there is extremism, where there is an interpretation. If I take the context of Afghanistan, where there is an interpretation of fundamentalist Islamist ideology. And when you put that together, there are serious problems about the role of women, and there are serious problems about the way single autonomous women are seen. And we need to be clear as to that point, that societies like Afghanistan under the Taliban will not allow or will reduce autonomous women to being either sex objects or loose, quote unquote, loose women or women who have no morals. And that is where we need to robustly challenge and call it out. And call it out. Yeah, and call it out. Correct.
All right, Faiz Mughal, thank you very much. He is the founder and director of Faith Matters.
Right, moving on now, because it is the Great British Giveaway, and we're giving away our biggest cash prize of the year. It's 85 grand, and here's what you need to know to be in it to win it.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date with an incredible £85,000 to be won. That's right, £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with each month for a whole year. That could be you, with your feet up, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. £85,000 is a massive amount of money, and it could be yours. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Because Donald Trump has launched a blistering attack on European leaders, calling them weak and accusing the continent of being in decline. Also after the break.
Storm Bram batters the country. We'll have the latest. All of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Now, severe weather warnings have been issued ahead of Storm Bram, which is forecast to hit the United Kingdom today and tomorrow, with gusts of up to 90 miles an hour, likely across northwest Scotland, but very strong winds will be felt widely.
Well, our GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire joins us now. How's he looking? He's looking pretty dry, actually, Tony. How are you feeling?
He looks glum, though. Glum.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? Because usually when I get sent out to cover a storm, I'm the one that's getting soaked through and blown sideways. And today, well, I seem to have dodged the worst of it. The wind is certainly picking up here now, and you can see the rain continues to pour in over from Northern Ireland. Of course, their amber warning came into force around 2 o'clock, and that will continue on till about 7. Meanwhile, the worst of the winds are certainly going to be up in the northwest of Scotland. Everything from Mull all the way up to Lewis, going to be facing up to 90 mile an hour gusts with 50 to 70 mile an hour winds backing it. So for a lot of people in central Scotland and even up into the Highlands and Grampian, a very uncomfortable state of affairs, but nothing too serious. Nevertheless, the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, they've issued 32 different flood warnings just to be on the safe side, because of course we're getting many a high tide. In fact, I was reading that we had a supermoon recently, and that has had some untold effects on extremely high tides. That might be why ScotRail have decided to shut a number of the train lines up to the west coast of Scotland, just to be on the safe side, because we've seen in the past those monstrously high waves coming up and over not just the tracks but the train cars themselves. But today, as I said, we have dodged, I would say, the worst of it. When I first spoke to Ellie this morning at 8 a.m, I was certainly getting drenched through in just a few seconds, but now it seems to have kind of petered away. And as I said, over the last hour we've definitely had that kind of wind building up, kind of typical winter weather for central Scotland, I have to say, here just now. But I really don't want to take anything away from the risk to life warning that the Met Office has issued for those two now amber warning areas in Northern Ireland and up in the northwest of Scotland. Northwest of Scotland from about 4 o'clock this afternoon all the way through to 3 a.m, I believe now, is expecting those extremely high winds. So if you are up in the northwest, or if you're planning a trip, please be careful, because there are plenty warnings in place and much advice out there to tell you what to do.
Thank you very much, Tony. Right, let's cross over to Do You Beatty in Northern Ireland, who is having a slightly worse time.
Doesn't look great, Doogie. How is it there?
Yeah. Well, Tony, you expect to get this driving rain and winds very shortly, because we are standing inside one of the amber warnings in the southwest of Northern Ireland, a town called Enniskillen. And yeah, the winds are really starting to pick up here. Rain starting to drive in. That is meant to travel on up the west coast of Ireland before whipping across the top end of it and travelling towards Tory in Scotland. So it is basically on time. The winds just aren't as high as you would imagine at this stage, but over the last hour they have really been starting to grow. Northern Ireland has had a pretty bad day all over the province with heavy rain, etc. But really this is the start of Storm Bram coming into us now, and we have seen lots of closures in Northern Ireland, especially of Christmas markets and festive occasions, mainly because they're afraid of the weather with some of those buildings that are only temporarily put in place. So yeah, Tony, expect the worst. I'll be laughing at about 4 o'clock.
We'll make sure we come back to him. Doogie Beattie, thank you very much. God.
Yeah, thanks Tony and Doogie, getting well drenched and a bit winded,
but it's on its way.
It's on its way.
Look, to Tony.
Tony's going to have a corker. Right, lots more coming up on today's show, rather than just our reporters getting brutalised by the weather. Because Donald Trump, he's launched a blistering attack on European leaders, calling them weak and accusing the continent of being in decline.
Well, all of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Storm Bram is well and truly with us. The greatest problem likely to be this afternoon, this evening, with the strength of the wind, particularly for Northern Ireland and northwest Scotland, where we have amber wind warning in place. There's the storm system. It's already brought a lot of heavy rain, continued risk of flooding as the rain continues to fall, and it's very windy already around western coasts, particularly for Wales and southwest England. Something a bit drier across parts of the east. At times it may brighten up, but the winds continue to strengthen around this circulation. As I said, an amber warning in place for Northern Ireland through this afternoon. It's quite mild, but it doesn't really feel particularly mild with the strength of the wind. And I say that's the biggest cause for concern later today through the afternoon and into this evening and overnight, particularly across the northwest of Scotland. Amber warnings in place here for gusts of wind of 70, 80, perhaps in exposed areas 90 miles an hour. That is likely to cause some disruption, power issues. The amber warning in place across the west of Northern Ireland until 7 o'clock this evening. Yellow warnings in place for much of the night across northern Britain. In the south, things should start to calm down. It'll certainly turn a bit drier through this evening, and the winds won't be as lively, but staying very, very windy in that northwestern corner. As I said, gusts of 80 to 90 miles an hour, likely to cause some significant disruption. Slowly easing a bit through the night, but it stays very windy into Wednesday across the far north. It'll be a mild night and a bright and blustery day for many on Wednesday. Still very, very windy at times in northern Scotland. Still a potential for further disruption, but generally things calming down as you go through Wednesday. Quite a bit of sunshine on offer actually over the Midlands, southern England and much of Wales. So things will be drying out here a little bit, and the winds will continue to slowly ease across the far north during the day. Not quite as mild as today, but temperatures still above average for the time of year.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation, because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M74 southbound at Junction 3 on-slip is restricted due to a broken down vehicle. On the M4 eastbound, expect long delays at the Prince of Wales Bridge due to an incident. In Essex, the A12 northbound entry slip at Junction 11 has a collision, closing one of 2 lanes. In Medway, the M2 westbound between Junctions 3 and 2 has a load spillage, closing 1 lane. In South Gloucestershire, anticipate congestion westbound on the M4 between junctions 19 and 22, with 1.5-hour delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast reports disruption on various routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 32 minutes past 2, and in a brand new interview, Donald Trump has dramatically denounced Europe as a decaying group of nations led by weak people.
It's as he criticised the leaders for failing to control migration and end the ongoing war in Ukraine, and it comes just a day after the meeting of the coalition of the willing yesterday in Downing Street, Well, joining us now is the Professor of US Foreign and Security Policy, David Dunn. Well, David, this was a fascinating interview by a lady who is, I've just lost her name now. Her name is Dasha Burns. She is one of the directors at Politico, and she asked many questions of Donald Trump that a lot of people have been too shy to ask. And I particularly found it interesting that he didn't shy away from criticising Europe and saying that it's basically a talking shop. Do you think he's right in that assessment?
I think the timing is important on these comments on Europe. What this does is show Donald Trump's frustration with the unwillingness, as he sees it, of Ukraine to give even more land to the aggressor, Russia. And he is criticising the Europeans for not putting pressure on Ukraine to cede this land to Russia, and therefore he's having to go with them on a whole range of issues. I mean, this is very undiplomatic language. It's not normally the way in which allies talk to each other. It's not the way in which he talks about the murderous dictatorships in other parts of the world, or the human rights abusers in Saudi Arabia, or indeed the Chinese. There's a statement, a new document issued last Friday, the National Security Strategy, and that doesn't criticize Russia for being the aggressor. So what we have in this Trump administration is a very topsy-turvy approach to the world, where he criticizes his main trading allies, he criticizes his long historical partners in NATO, and actually gives other people a complete pass.
Professor Dunn, looking at some of the demands that Donald Trump has had for Europe, they aren't new. He's been saying these things for years, and his demands, if we're frank, they're just common sense, really, aren't they? That the continent needs to be more robust, regardless of Washington's involvement. What's your sense now about how European leaders are going to react to this interview?
Well, I think that they will be unhappy about these words. I say this is not the way you speak in public about your allies, but they've mostly been minded to not to fire back, because while they are reliant on America for support for Ukraine and for support through European security more broadly through NATO, they're reluctant to criticise him, given how impetuous he is and how unpredictable he is in terms of how he reacts to people going back at him. So they'd be prepared, most likely, to suck it up, but it doesn't mean they're happy about it, and it doesn't mean that Europe is investing heavily in defence, recognising that America under Trump is an unreliable ally for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why people might see that. But ultimately, a lot of the things he says are, as you said, common sense. And they are right, because he can clearly see that Ukraine is not really in a strong position. And what he does continue to emphasise is that he wants to stop seeing the killing and stop seeing people dying, which it doesn't feel like any of the European leaders, and Zelensky included in that, appear to be really focusing on. I mean, his people are dying ridiculous numbers, and if the war ends, then the killing stops, which is what the point that Donald Trump is making.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Everyone wants to see an end to the killing, but the whole point of choosing war rather than subjugation is that actually fighting and potentially dying is worth it if there's a wider issue at stake. Under Donald Trump, he would have actually forced Churchill to surrender in 1940, to stop the fighting, to stop the killing. But actually there are wider issues at stake here, and the security of the sovereign Ukraine that's left is more important than actually an immediate ceasefire. Initially, remember, 6 months ago, Trump was calling for an unconditional ceasefire. He's walked away from that, and now what he's saying is that actually Ukraine has to give up all the rest of the Donbass in exchange for that ceasefire, which is a move that neither Ukraine nor the European partners are prepared to do. Why should Russia be given more land that it hasn't managed to conquer militarily just through a peace process to end the killing on Donald Trump's timetable rather than on what's right and just for Ukraine and for European security? So he can bluster all he likes, but he's not going to get his way, and that's partly why he is resorting to undiplomatic language in this way.
All right. Well, look, I'm not sure whether Churchill and the war in Ukraine are comparable. Remember, nobody had nuclear weapons.
Why do you think
let me finish. Sorry. I was just saying, because nobody had nuclear weapons there. And the reality is that Russia are armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons. In fact, they've got more than anyone. So, you know, you have to factor that in.
But for 4 years, what you've managed to do is support Ukraine without the risk of nuclear war, and actually the support that the Biden administration, and indeed the first 9 months of this administration has done, has put pressure on Russia. Trump talked about giving ground-launched cruise missiles. That can make a difference. More sanctions on Russia.
I suppose, David, all those things would have been more useful had European powers reacted more strongly in 2014 when Crimea was taken over and when Russia first invaded. Everyone sort of did nothing, continued taking in Russian gas and energy products, failed to bolster their militaries. Indeed, they shrunk their militaries, and then now, laughed at Donald Trump when he told them to change course. He can, be criticised for undiplomatic language. It's what he's always done, really, isn't it? But he has been proven right.
Well, I mean, you can criticise the decision all round, and that's true of the American administration in 2014 too. But we can't go back and change time. All we can do is do what the right thing is that needs to be done now. And what Trump is suggesting is far from the right thing to do now for either Ukraine, for European security, or for America's role in the world. And criticising your allies is for having a mayor called Khan is frankly irrelevant. But it's what he chooses to do instead, rather than focusing on the issues.
But he's right, though. Europe are still buying Russian oil and gas, aren't they? And he's right to say that ultimately they're still effectively helping to fund the war. That's what he criticised them on.
Well, OK, let's break that down. Europe is buying... Most of the EU is not buying oil and gas. Hungary is, his friend Orban is buying fuel from the Russians. But actually, most of the EU has actually switched entirely. And in fact, what they're doing is buying American LNG instead of Russian oil and gas. So most of Europe is not buying oil and gas from Russia. Russia is selling it to India and China instead at reduced prices, and actually their economy is suffering.
Listen, David, we have to leave it there. We have to leave it there. Sadly, I could talk to you for ages. But you haven't mentioned the ghost ships where they kind of act like it's not coming from Russia when it actually is. But anyway, thank you very much to you, David Dunn.
Right, let's move on now, because pub landlords across the country have warned the government of dire consequences if planned increases in business rates come into force, saying they could face financial ruin.
But it's not just the pub industry who are actually feeling the pinch. Small business owners of all types are fearing the worst following the so-called nightmare budget before Christmas. But just how tough could this be, and what do you think? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And would you give British businesses a leg up as we head into 2026?
Right, let's cross over to the Winter by the River market and speak to the businessman and TV personality Tom Skinner. Afternoon, Tom. How are you doing? Talk us through the market you're at.
How you doing?
And how is the Christmas cheer there? Have we got people supporting great British businesses?
Of course we have. Listen, a lovely market, Winter by the River, on the Thames, HMS Belfast. Look at that, what a sight. Stunning place as well, nice and busy, and some lovely stalls doing fantastic grub. It's different class, getting us in the Christmas spirit, do you know what I mean?
What are you selling on your stall? Are you actually selling stuff?
So, I'm not saying anything. I've come here to support the local traders because that's a bit important. But I'm at the Smoky Joe's Meat Feast. We've got John here. John, how's it going, mate? You all good? What are you cooking us?
Today we're doing a nice bit of ribeye steak. Yeah, it's good. We're just getting ribbed up for Christmas. There's something for everybody down here at the Tudor Market. Winter on the River. Come and see us. Come and get some real good grub. Come and see Thomas.
I'll give you your hat. I'll give you your hat back, John. There you go, mate. Keep that.
Thank you very much.
He freshly picked his hair for today. He did. What have I got? I've got a nice bit of steak coming up.
Coming your way, sir.
Thank you very much. But I'll walk you down the market because there's loads of different stalls and they're all doing something different. This one is superb. My friend John, look at that, different class. Give us a bit of sauce, John. Don't be tight on the so look at that. Oh, fantastic. You definitely looked in. But look, come down here. This is what I like about this. So we've got traditional fish and chips. How you doing, guys? You all right? You good? How are you? Keep coming down. We've got even look at this. Now this keeps going viral on the internet. This is the famous Yorkshire pudding wrap. What we got in the Yorkshire puddings this year?
Chicken, beef, got cauliflower cheese.
Sounds amazing. I don't know if people are doing anything this Christmas. Why don't you pop down and say hello, because it's all going off. Do you know what I mean?
And Tom, we were hearing from GB News viewers and listeners earlier today. They're asked, would they pay more at their local markets and at the pubs to support British businesses? It was actually split 50-50. A lot of people feeling the pinch at the minute after that recent budget. What's your message to punters around the country when it comes to Christmas spending, pubs and markets?
Look, I'll say one thing. Look, I know it's tight out there and the budget didn't help anyone, but you have to support local, because when you support small businesses, when you support local business, it's in the local, goes into the local pot, doesn't get farmed out to big companies, spend their tax abroad, it all comes in a circle, supporting UK farmers, UK economy, local jobs. It's the governor.
All right, Tom Skinner, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you there. That's Tom Skinner out there at the market. Which one was he at?
Windsor by the River.
Windsor by the River, just along the Thames. It looked really great, wasn't it? It was lovely.
HMS Belfast and some steak. It's not a bad combo, is it?
Not surprised though that he was hanging around by the food. That's what I'd be doing as well.
I thought you were making a negative comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting sort of DJ setup with the mics and the headphones there from Tom.
Yeah,
curious.
Useless if he switched the other mic on, but never mind. Maybe next time.
Right, well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show, because disgraced BBC presenter Hugh Edwards, he's been accused of staging something of a comeback. We'll have all the details for you.
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, that sounds like a bit... I can't imagine that could be true, but...
Oh, you'll be surprised by those details, Nana.
Well, stay with us, though, because if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's not just the UK seeing some unsettled weather at the moment. It's also been unsettled for much of the week in Cyprus. That continues into Wednesday. And the trailing weather front from Storm Bram brings thicker cloud and some showery rain into the Canary Islands, as well as much of Iberia. This is a slow-moving weather front, so thicker cloud and some outbreaks of showery rain for much of Spain through Wednesday into Thursday. A lot of fine weather through central parts of the Med, particularly Italy, and above average temperatures for the time of year. Plenty of sunny spells.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. Oh no, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's fast approaching 49 minutes after 2 o'clock. Now, remember him, disgraced BBC presenter Hugh Edwards? Well, he's sparked speculation about a return to public life. Could he be attempting a comeback?
Well, Edwards posted a black and white professional portrait online while simultaneously removing his family home from estate agent websites.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is psychologist Jo Hemmings. Jo, so it seems a bit of an unusual thing for someone to do who's kind of in hiding after what is obviously awful crimes. Does this signal, are we jumping on some crazy bandwagon of just going down a rabbit hole by thinking that perhaps he's trying to stage some form of comeback?
No, I don't think you are. I think he is jumping down a crazy rabbit hole, thinking he may be onto a comeback. I mean, you know, this is a disgraced man who has a 6-month suspended jail sentence for downloading indecent photos of young children, suddenly coming back and putting up this kind of slightly sinister photo of himself to his 430 followers, because that's all he's got left. And that usually is a moment when somebody thinks it is due for their comeback. A lot of, you know, big public figures completely misunderstand the moral landscape. They think time is a great healer, that somehow we might forget or overlook it. And I find it, I was so shocked to see that photo this morning. I can't tell you. I thought, a bit like Greg Wallace, he'd gone away. You know, he knew the extent of the damage and the distress he caused, and he'd just go away quietly. But somehow, a lot of these public figures, these celebrities, have this way of trying to reframe the narrative and come back into the public gaze again.
And of course, Greg Wallace hasn't, though, been charged with anything, but Hugh Edwards on the other. So I'm not sure the two are comparable, but I understand where you were leading with that.
And with the relaunch that he might be looking at, Hugh Edwards, he's been liking comments on this Facebook post from supporters saying that they want him back on their screens. So it doesn't need to be a psychologist, perhaps, Jo, to see what he's suggesting with that. But is there any room for manoeuvre for this man? Could Hugh Edwards perhaps go for an online career? We know that lots of sort of disgraced former TV presenters can opt for alternative media, perhaps. Is that a strategy that he might deploy?
I mean, possibly. He may be looking for some sort of redemption and forgiveness and want to move on. But actually, by posting an image like that, that doesn't indicate any of that. That indicates a reframing of a narrative that says, you know, you've probably all forgotten by now, or, you know, as I say, overlooked it because I was a national treasure and here I am coming back in some way. I find his method very, very strange. I mean, where's the apology? Where's the humility? You just plonk yourself back on there with an indication that you're coming back. I find it really seriously shocking, and it's totally underestimated, as far as I'm concerned, the public's moral response to this that I think is enduring. It's not over, it's not forgotten. We won't forget. It's shocking. Yeah, I think it's a very foolish move that will backfire on him in some way.
Could one of the explanations for that house being removed off the market be because estate agents said that they were flooded with crank inquiries when it was sort of placed on the website? So do you think that perhaps because people have realised whose house it is, that is actually part of the reason, and not that he's thinking of doing something, building some cash to do something and have some sort of comeback or whatever?
I don't know. It's that photo as much as the house being removed from the market. It's quite a, you know, it's a bit of a sultry photo, isn't it? That black and white shot of him sort of bearded and looking a bit different. I can't actually imagine what he thinks he's doing unless he really just cannot get over the fact that he was once this national treasure, revered on all the major news events on the BBC, and he feels that time is a great healer and he can now come back in some way, shape or form. And I don't feel, other than his devoted followers, of which there aren't that many, that it's actually going to be possible to do that.
Yeah, he's never apologised.
No, he hasn't. Joe Hemmings, thank you very much. Perhaps he's trying to show off his full head of hair, because at that age it's sort of unusual.
Well, Nana, we have to remember, I mean, this is a man who did try to bribe the parents involved in this horrifying story to tell them to shut up, to make the story go away.
Well, listen, thank you so much for watching Good Afternoon Britain. It's been a pleasure, as ever. I'm back tomorrow.
So am I. We'll be working together.
Wonderful.
See you there.
Up next, it's Martin Daubney.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. As Storm Bram continues to cause some problems. The strongest winds actually likely in the next few hours. Amber warnings are in place across parts of Northern Ireland and northern and western Scotland. And you can see why. Here's the storm system. Look at those isobars really squeezing together. Very strong, potentially damaging gust of wind across Northern Ireland and the northwest of Scotland through this evening. The winds will slowly ease in Northern Ireland, but still the potential for very damaging gusts across northern Scotland well into the night, and in fact yellow warnings remain in place for much of Wednesday across Scotland. Further south there'll be some decent clear spells, enough of a breeze to stop temperatures dropping too far, 9 to 10 Celsius. So still pretty blustery on Wednesday, and still the potential certainly across Scotland for damaging gusts of wind, especially across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles through Wednesday. Gusts of 70, perhaps in exposed areas still 80 miles an hour. Very windy start then across Scotland. Plenty of showers packing in here as well. Still very windy too for Northern Ireland. More showers in here and quite a showery start for England and Wales. The showers will be zipping through. They're not going to last long because of that fairly brisk wind, and there should be some sunny spells. And for much of England and Wales, a bright and blustery day kind of sums up tomorrow. But for Scotland, as I said, although the winds are notched down, still the potential, particularly across the Northern Isles and the Western Isles, of damaging gusts of wind well into Wednesday. So still a potential for flying debris, power issues, as well as transport disruption. Temperature-wise, cooler than today, but it's very mild out there today. Still, these numbers are above average for the time of year. Thursday, a calmer day, but still quite windy in parts of the west, and you can see further outbreaks of rain coming in, particularly to Northern Ireland and at times into western Scotland. Much of England and Wales, though, looking dry, and there'll be some brighter spells as well. Keep up to date with all those Met Office weather warnings on the website.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to become our biggest cash prize winner to date. £85,000 in totally tax-free cash could be making its way from our bank account to yours. It would be like having over £7,000 per month extra to play with, each month for a whole year. That could be you, safe in the knowledge that 2026 is on us. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Just have a look at Tom's Stoppard.
Yeah, this is terribly sad. It is the end of a kind of literary era. 6 decades-long career that Sir Tom had. My parents hung out with him in the 60s and 70s. My mum has a wonderful story. Gorgeous man, but also a real flirt in a lovely way, in a gentlemanly way. And Mum was telling me last night about a very gorgeous little pink suit that she was wearing that he appreciated, let us say, very much. And what a lovely man who's died at the age of 88. But yeah, I mean, not only a playwright, but also a screenwriter. He wrote the screenplay for Shakespeare in Love, which is something that...
what he won the Oscar for?
Yes, he won a Golden Globe and an Academy Award, and so many other kind of literary accolades in his career. He was really proud of his Czech heritage, wasn't he, and found out lots and lots about his Jewish roots, but also very British as well. I think he balanced that.
Basically, he became the master of the second language.
Yeah.
Because he didn't speak English until he came to Britain.
At around, I think he was age 9, so it's quite late to...
So he became an absolute master of English, which wasn't his native, his real language.
And people say, you know, what should you see, what should you read? Because I think you should read Tom Stoppard as well as seeing him on the stage. And there's travesties, and there's jumpers, and there's Arcadia. I would recommend Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, which is so clever. And what you're saying about language there and words, that was the genius, really, of Tom Stoppard. There's one quote I wanted to read you. Be happy. If you're not even happy, what's so good about surviving? And he's so good about life and about mortality and about the fact that life is going in one direction for all of us. Same direction. Time is the only measure. He's brilliant on that. And he's kind of very intellectual, but also really accessible.
GB News, the People's Channel.